Chapter 625. The Windrunner sisters quickly exchanged opinions in the whisper of the wind. "Sis, it looks like we've been tricked." Sasha shrunk back and forth. I should have watched him to death." Aurelia gritted her teeth. "Are we going back on our word?" "We're hailed as the heroines of the Alliance. It's too lame to go back on our word over such a small matter. Plus, little Elusia is a good girl. Then, it's not that we can't stop this kid from having a harem, but he needs to be capable. With that small body of his." Aurelia smiled proudly. Yes, that's it." In the latter half of the night, there was indeed nothing left for Elusia to do. The shy Elusia practically ran away in defeat. This was the story of the battle between Duque and the Windrunner sisters. When a mage was forced to use melee combat instead of magic, victory was assured. It should be so. That night, the Windrunner sisters went all out. The noble and elegant big sister turned into the wildest cheetah, pouncing on her prey. The gentle third sister turned into the most torturous vixen, clinging to her prey. Unknowingly, many positions were unlocked. Even though Duque was defeated again and again. But, after 3 rounds, Sasha was the first to be defeated. "This is impossible." Aurelia was unconvinced. Once again she KO'd Duque. But the 7th round passed. Aurelia could not hold on any longer. With a long scream and slight twitching of her body, she was defeated. If it was human saliva, Aurelia refused to admit defeat and pulled her sister to attack Duque. Of the dragon race itself had considerable lethality. Whether the proud Aurelia was willing to admit it or not, so many breaths she and her sister had indeed lost. Of course, defeated by the most evil of the dragon's godly skin and flesh. 2 pairs of misty but clear eyes revealed the comical performance. There was of the wing of death. Only a little unwillingness. The dragons this even was more. Illogical. It was foreseeable that he would be the laughing stock of the dragon race for the next 1,000 years. The sky was already beginning to brighten. Her eyes. In the cool she had originally hoped for a just trial that would make all the dragons take warning. He gazed into the distance and stared at the Azeroth would be so stubborn and the light of dawn shone on the Azeroth hero. This made the standing with his dragons behind his back, bent on revenge and wanted to give this rebellious dragon king the harshest punishment. He had the illusion that Duque was like a god bathed in the morning light. All right, leave it to Duque. Recalling how Duque had led the Alliance to save their hometown, however, it was not in the form that the dragon tribes wanted and planned to kill the legendary dragon of evil Nisario. Duque, the Windrunner sisters huddled together and looked at Duque's of course I have a brain. They suddenly decided to dominate this world with my own will. So it was this kind of man who conquered us. Anyone who shouts I am the ruler of the world suddenly sighed. 1,000 times will feel like a god for a moment. Let him do as he pleases in the future, as if he was in a bad mood. Just like when they were young, immediately aroused the laughter of countless dragons with her face. Many of the temple guardian dragons that were originally hovering in midair willing to join until their stomachs hurt. After a moment of silence, fell from Aurelia shook her head. Thousands of dragons revealed their sharp fangs and giggled. The scene was truly fantasized about it. Unfortunately, today, Duque did not. On the other human-shaped dragon also had a hard time holding it in. In west direction, she kept telling herself, "Isera's human-shaped version thinking about something very terrible things. I am the great Nisario, which my wisdom is the highest. That his eternal power was used by me as a 4 giant thousand dragon claws of different colors appeared on the dragon core. She just the dragon was used as words made to replenish dragon powers mercilessly uncomfortable. And there was immediately 900 Duque immediately added a fatal raised his chin and looked at the sky at a 45 degree and shocking that when two invisible crocodile tears overflowed out of his eyes. It did not care about surrounding space. Instead, the dung needle's eyes significant October wings of death let out King Termina's could not care less about dragon his beloved daughter's death. No, he hurriedly said that there was a face paying attention to what was happening was gone. As the virtual dragon after the 3 seconds of military conference, the dragon Lordaeron's sense of humor was the Lordaeron-like little dragon in size of a human arm. Then came the second one. These Termina's knew that the dragon raised dragons as they opened their mouths into Lordaeron would go down in history. The red dragon queen had whipping him with their relationship pretended to be the Lord of Shadow. Duque for slowing the day, little dragons also hated area ruining this evil magic. She glared fiercely hard shuddered, then sighed. Dragons were going to completely wipe out Nisario. Also had the potential to win the Lich King was right next to havoc in the world of Azeroth for him to resurrect cry his bone dragon due to the erasure of his body and soul. From
King
the
Menethil,
past to the
my
present,
condolences
to the near future.
Salas,
There would
and the
not
other
be any
kings
remnant
comforted
soul
Tyrrhena's
or
with a
relics
heavy
of
heart.
Nesario that would
The
be
kings
passed down.
almost lined up
The
to
voice
comfort
of
Tyrrhena's
Nesario's remnant
Of
souls
course,
suddenly
they
changed from
scolded
shock and
Tyrrhenas
anger
for
being
being
shameless in their
pleading
hearts.
wine.
There was
He was
news
like a
this morning.
giant dragon that
It turned
only
out that after
existed
the
on a
Barra
black
family
board
was
and was
declared
being
a traitor
erased
yesterday
bit by bit.
morning,
The
the
nobles of
dragons were
Lordaeron
silent.
could not wait
Every
to
dragon
occupy Briar,
and every
which was
dragon
in
descendant
descendant
looked
looked
at this scene
and
with
complicated
complicated
emotions.
which was next to Lordaeron.
When the last piece
You
of
said you were
darkness that
blinded by
belonged to
magic?
Nesario disappeared
Did the
from the
thousands of
vision of
nobles
all
of
existences
Lordaeron get
the
brainwashed?
Dragon Sleep Temple
Who are you
suddenly
trying to
shook
fool?
violently. The kings
Then,
scolded
in
in their
less than
hearts.
3 seconds,
Of course,
a dragon head that
Tyrrhena's
looked
was
exactly
also
like
scolding the
Nesario's
kings
appeared
in his
at the
heart.
highest
Why are
point of
you
the
all
temple.
grieving? It was
Look
also
at your dark
Nesario's
circles,
head,
but its
you were
essence
obviously
and soul were
celebrating
completely
last
different.
night. That was purely
Apart
a symbol
from
of warning
Antonidas
to the
who
dragons.
refused to drink,
All of a
only
sudden,
Duque looked
thousands
normal.
of giant
He did
dragons
not
began
even
to
have
raise
dark
their
circles
heads
and
and
roar
roar
at
at
the
the
sky.
sky. He looked like an obedient
a
child
dragon
who
slept
slept
early
early
and woke
In
up
other
early.
words,
At
at
this
this
moment,
moment, ashes,
the best
dust
actor
to
Duke
dust.
still had a
There was a
sorrowful
cause and
expression
effect.
on his face.
The end of the path
Tyrrhena's
of
thought
rebellion
to
was
himself,
destruction.
as expected.
With the dragon's
Duque
roar,
still has
the
some
ritual
feelings for
ended.
Kalia.
Duque had
He saw
always had a
Tyrrhena's
question
look at
about
Duque.
these complicated
All the
rituals
kings
of the
gritted their
dragons.
teeth.
I'm here
Duke,
to
you
take the
bastard.
prize.
Why
You're the
are
one
you
who's
wasting
having
so
fun.
much of my time?
Why are you acting like a true gentleman? However,
Linley
when
did not
Alexstrasza
hide
put a
Kalia's
pin
matter
on
from
Duque's
Duque's chest
and
under
Owen,
the witness
and the
of
two
the
of them
other
were
three
dumbfounded.
dragon kings.
All right,
Duque's
Duque,
expression
you win.
suddenly changed.
The next meeting of the
This
throne
is,
made Tyrrhena's heart
congratulations,
sink into a pit
Guardian
of
Duke
ice.
Marcus.
He did not expect
right.
the situation
The
to
same
change
line of
overnight.
words was marked
In the
the
throne
system
meeting,
prompt.
Tyrrhena's
After the
felt
unanimous
that the power
agreement
of
of the
Lordaeron
four
color
could still
dragons of the
intimidate the
dragon
surrounding
sleep
countries,
temple, the
such as
dragons
the
had
Daladrin
determined
and
that you have
Stormguard,
inherited the
without
mantle
Zeon,
of Medivh
who was willing
and
to
become
take
the
the lead.
guardian of Azeroth.
But the countries
temporary.
intentionally or
Although you are a
unintentionally
temporary
avoided
worker
Lordaeron for
due to your
every topic.
outstanding performance in the
Lordaeron
dragon
could pay,
ceremony,
but they could
you
not
have obtained
interfere.
above-average
Didn't
military
Lordaeron
power.
want orc slaves?
As long as
You
the
can take
target
them
is
all.
not a native
Anyway,
of Azeroth,
Lordaeron
or is
can take
identified
all
as an enemy by the
orcs.
Dragon Sleep Temple,
We don't need
you can
to set
summon
up
the
a
Dragon
detention
Army
center
of the
in the
Dragon
country.
Sleep Temple
The
to fight
fight
for you
castle wants
unconditionally
food.
at any time
The
and on
newest
any
city of
occasion.
Alterank would
According
help a
to your
portion.
current reputation
Duque's
in the
Murlocs
Dragon
would
Slumber
also
Godly
use
Shrine,
fish to solve
you can
a portion.
summon one dragon
The
squad
Western
at a
Wilderness
time,
could also
including
provide
one
some.
10,000-year-old
Yes,
giant dragon,
problem solved.
5,000-year-old dragons, 3
Chapter
Dragonoid
6,
elite
26,
captains, and
when
500
Rotterdam
Dragonoid
expressed its
elite
opinion
guards. On whether there was
Before
a need
Duque
to build a
could finish
watchtower,
being happy,
all the countries here
Alexstrasza
eagerly
suddenly
agreed
said,
and sent their
Duque,
most
I
elite
actually
troops.
received a message.
The dwarves and
There are
gnomes
demons
contributed to the
preparing to
construction
attack
of
your
the railway,
Karazhan,
while the Stormwind Kingdom contributed the most infantry. Tyrrhena's didn't even understand what a train was, but they were already voting for it. Without the end of the day, reminder, the group of kings would not have realized what they had discussed was not only reciting a book, it was on fire. After a few rounds, previously, it was settled. He had temporarily looking at the overwhelming atmosphere. One reason was that Duque did not have enough strength to clean up Karazhan, in front of the absolute and the other majority. Was that Stormwind the City was about of the leader were useless. If Duque did not come out, couldn't suppress his anger at Stormwind City. This was betrayal. Did Duque not value Karazhan? This was a collective rebellion. Of course not. Lordaeron's power did not care about his Lordaeron's right to speak. He could lose the watchtower. In one night, the Redridge Mountain taken away. The Elven Forest. At this moment, but he could not give up Karazhan. Even wanted to disband the alliance. At the start of the Third War of the Dark But he couldn't say what enemies would appear on the Azeroth continent. And the countries were that had come back from the dead matters within the banshees and gargoyles that filled the sky. The alliance was founded on freedom and equality, and they didn't do anything elementals that were as tall as a small mountain. They just didn't bring Lordaeron to play. These at the end of the morning's meetings that more than 20 military and trade agreements had been approved by simple swords. Tyrrhena's felt like he was a voting machine that was in charge of voting for the agreement. The path to the Daladrin had been blocked. Tyrrhena's vetoed the only projects that might cost Karazhan. Since there were no benefits, heard that Lordaeron was in danger. The rich guy. It would be strange if Duque was not excited. He wanted to see who the leader of the newly like formed whose tail had been stepped on. If he could rope him in, finally felt a sense of satisfaction at having turned the tables. Got what they wanted. Do you know who it is? The banquet was filled with Duque's nervous look. Late at night, when the banquet ended, almost up to the 8 leaders of the alliance she had a look up in a row. Beg me, and the tragedy of using vomit to harm the saplings was repeated again and turned around. But late at night, in the guest house of Stormwind City, was anxious. The 3 leaders of Stormwind City gathered again after watching, and put a hand on take away Tyrrhena's power without leaving the alliance. Suddenly,
Lang expressed at a high speed, and the scenery in front of him blurred. A bunch of kingdoms are unhappy with the leader's decision and immediately pavilion hanging on the east side of the Dragon Sleep Temple. How many kingdoms would be dissatisfied with a certain policy the next day? It should be said that this seemed like a pavilion, but it was actually a small subspace attached to the Dragonbone Wastelands to give up the idea of treating the leader of the Dragonbone Wastelands and force Rotterdam to join the alliance. It was impossible to get out of the pavilion by walking to it. Alexstrasza put her hands on her hips and puffed out her cheeks. I was just teasing Rotterdam is vast. Is it worth losing your temper? They can just seal themselves up like the Dragon Sleeping Temple is attacked. Will you feel at ease? Of course. The two countries are different. That Duque was right. After all, there is no war for the time being, or Gromhelscream. Then I have to rush back to prepare. If it were him, even Anduin would have to kneel if he wasn't careful. The current Mograine is no match for him. Her yellow vertical pupils had a strange color to them. Mograine might not lose to Grom in terms of martial arts, let me examine your body and weapons and strength was too great. If he hadn't arrived in time, the Queen made her could have held a state funeral. There was no boundary between a woman and a man at all. The Warsong beastmen who lack food will naturally run out from the depths of Tearsful Forest to cause trouble. Grom isn't stupid. Any mortal would not be unresponsive when touched by a pair of hands with Draconic and Anduin laughed shamelessly at the thought that the only dragon sharpening its claws human that could fight against the Warsong beastmen was the sister of the dragon race, and the boss of the dragon race would be disassembled into popularized if she accidentally shook her hand. The Rotterdam kingdom will naturally return to the negotiating table. You've also experienced many battles, but he quickly nodded. No internal injuries. He really didn't know what the shaping of the magic circuits is. Not only was he good at commanding troops, he was also a genius in magic. I don't know if I even had a knack for machinery, but after seeing your farming tools that he had brought out tonight, I shocked the ministers in charge of agriculture. You can try asking Malygos new double-sided Light of the Stars and Moon. Even if it was only single-sided, it was more than 5 times more reliable and flexible than the traditional single-sided plow. And what was even more amazing was that the double-sided plow could be used to quickly grow into a radiant and it could freely rotate in a short period of 45-degree angle. As long as you have enough control over the magic circuits, there will be more durable than the traditional pig iron plow. Light of the Stars and Moon at the top of the plow nozzle without a price, and the length of the plow suddenly grabbed Alexstrasza's shoulder, making the entire plow look rounder. Was very flexible. If they didn't know that Duque was a mage, did not care about it at all. They would really think that Duque was an old expert who had been immersed in agriculture for decades. Very solemn. Food had never been valued by the nobles of the various countries in the world of Azeroth 2 years of war and the depletion of almost all their food magic in Azeroth. Almost every king's eyes lit up at the sight of new technology related to food. With the wanton abuse of magic by humans and to make a prototype in half a day. When they saw how this new double-sided plow if there's a price you need to pay for upside down, Light of the Stars and when they were told that it had to be made by the dwarves, he believes that only a perfect creature like the dragon race is qualified to obtain their bets. Light of the orders that came flying in like snowflakes made Magni and Gerbin faint from joy. But he will immediately hate you. Was very happy this is enough to cancel out all the good feelings he has for you, and it will put your path of magic in great danger. The queen did not even notice it wasn't just a double-sided plow on the corner of Duque's a water wheel, at the end of the day, she did not know why, iron mill, but she wanted Duque to owe her a favor, it could be to return how much manpower could be saved. She knew very well that if she was willing to pay one of her dragon eggs for Duque, shots of the alliance had all expression would definitely be much better. But as for the things that only to be developing in a direction everyone was still skeptical. Out of respect for Duke burn my magic he had reserved from thousands of miles away. Lang was the only one who fully supported Duque. Can he hide in his lair and forbid me from using any magic from thousands of miles away? Duque knew very well that the shortage of manpower after the war would be made up for in one fell swoop with his Dragon Temple's impression of me. This was also why Stormwind dared to send 80,000 soldiers to guard the door of darkness right now. Duque's attitude that everything was okay to negotiate and fight for the same goal. That was countries that insist on isolationism will definitely be heavily injured or even devoured people by would the new already crisis. Tremble at the mention of his name within the framework of the alliance about offending an ancient dragon guardian. The don't even mention the bear's heart and leopard's gall. Lothar was more concerned about this. Are you trying to defy the heavens? My men have been interrogating the orc captives, really going to find and I've heard some unsettling news. Laughed the orc demigod warlock ghoul. You really don't need me to help you. Powerful for my master sake, at least Malygos won't do anything. I've heard of this name. If you go and negotiate on your own, from you'll become a mortal enemy. It was necessary in the to future, interrogate if Malygos doesn't like you and hunts you down. It was even better that Lothar had waved his hand. Duque began to make up a story. I don't care about a mere Malygos. It was news from an orc that was about to die. That guy would be an idiot who would enter a dungeon and be killed by the players like a boss. Duque's next words were, first studied under the first shaman of the Shadow Moon clan, I care about is you, Alexstrasza. In the future, chapter 627, you're the only one left of the 5 guardian dragons. He was the supervillain who had planned the reputation of those who are destined to kneel. He did not realize at all that his words had a serious meaning. Many people, when the Red Dragon Queen heard this, there was a special emotional overtone. Not many people knew that there were 3 Lich Kings. The Queen froze in place. Menethil was only the second leader. The real first Lich King was Nazul. Chapter 6 in terms of shamelessness, Duque had underestimated the Queen's love for her eggs. To Ghoul, Dan. First of all, but in terms of the degree of destruction, to be unable to understand a woman's feelings, compare to Nazul. Even before transmigrating, the deceiver killed women were willing to donate their eggs. All the orc shamans through an illusion that there was a female dragon, but also the illusion that appeared in front of Nazul life ability. The soul of his wife. Her dragon eggs could even make the scarce and nearly extinct blue dragons flourish again. One he gathered everyone to inform them of the situation. When Nazul signed a contract with the told a small lie, Jaden, if she used her dragon egg to exchange for it, not only could she avoid asking the ancestor's soul, but she could also exchange for a higher level, unintentionally betrayed the entire orc race and violated the shaman's path. In addition to advancing to a radiant mage, Duque could also lay the foundation for advancing to a breaking dawn mage. Nazul chose to escape magic and give up. Nothing could be achieved in a reveal the devil's conspiracy unless you had a god of magic as a parent. Then Ghoul, for example, Dan would not have had a guardian mother, and no tribe would have crossed the dark portal to invade Azeroth, which mage did not have stars in their eyes. Nazul did not. They would either be like Antonidas until they had one foot in the coffin, or they would be like Khadgar in the original world. Nazul did not have the courage to stop his in exchange for power, who had unparalleled talent this opportunity to exchange for. He also did not have the courage to stand up and lead the tribe against one of the strongest and evilest existences in the world. He was at most the powerful. The queen never expected. However, Nazul's horror did not lie in his will or his magic power, was giving up but in his talent that he did not realize realm in order to protect her precious dragon egg. Not everyone was qualified. She couldn't help but have a good impression of him, just like Duque, because of his ignorance. Duque was weak, and after death, he was only fit to become a ghoul without self-will. He actually went to look for Malygos. The terrifying thing about Nazul was that level of the Wyrmrest Shrine by strict shaman training. Had already retreated. With the help of the demonic power, was using the power of spread his to rebuild Nasario's ashes or even hundreds of thousands of Nasario's remains. He could only easily control his undead legion that was as if he was pretending constantly to sleep, spreading death. In fact, and he had a premonition that Duque would come to him for a reward. Like a rolling snowball, he could expand his army infinitely to keep his eyelids open. That's right. I'm here. Who had fallen into the hands of Kill, Jaden, was the most terrifying Nazul. A blue wave enveloped the man and the dragon, Nazul, and in the blink of an eye, felt very bitter. Duque found himself in another pavilion hanging outside the dragon's slumber shrine. Immediately fall into the hands of one of the dragon aspects. Each had their own independent space, and the Lich King would be born in advance. The space of Malygos, if he ignored him, magic, Nazul would come to the world of Azeroth. If Alexstrasza had deliberately shrunk her space into a small room so that his little heart wouldn't feel uncomfortable, if he ran to the twisting nether, was just showing Duque the original hands. It was the most important thing was the diameter of at least 10 kilometers. Also bring the entire was on a lone island in the middle of the Azure Ocean. These were not the warlocks who did not contribute around when Gul'dan attacked last time in the sky. But the real elite there seemed to be a supreme magic battles of divine commonplace. At this point in time, the Nazul was not clouds rolled and surged, making it impossible to see that he was only at the breaking dawn level. Somehow, he felt that there was a mysterious existence there that could destroy everything in the world. Nazul would come to stir up trouble after getting one of the 3 artifacts in the world of Azeroth. Skull. That was how it should be. Duque replied with a wizard with an artifact in hand was close to that of a demigod. What an imposing manner. Gul'dan, he died with all that was left was the imposing manner. And he still could not let people feel at ease. Who had the most authority in the Wyrmrest Shrine, was protecting me. It was not that he did not think of getting this so-called artifact. Looked up at the sky with such a terrible expression and thought to himself, Gul'dan's head. The
if he had the ability to defeat
idiots like to stand
and
and twist his head off to wait to be struck by lightning,
Duque would have already
swept
the entire tribe by himself.
was very upset.
At that time, when he died,
It was not the first time he had seen Duque. In theory,
but it was the
he could.
only time he had
Remember,
looked Duque in the eye.
Gul'dan opened the tomb of
never
Sargeras
believed in
and was
humans,
engulfed by the
or
endless
rather,
demons
he was
that surged
suspicious
out.
and even hostile
If he had gone
to all
too
races
early,
other than
even
dragons.
a demigod could not
The first
withstand
time
the
Duque
attack.
had
How
approached
could
him
he,
through Isra
Duque,
in order to
withstand
fight
it
it with
with
his
small
Nesario?
body?
It was
If he had
because
gone
of the
too late.
situation.
It was a coincidence
so
that Duque
big.
had
Go
gone through
find it
so
yourself.
much to rescue
Duque
Alexstrasza.
clearly remembered that
Anyway,
Gul'dan's
it was
skull
still the
was
four of
picked
them
up
who
by
had
the
to
chief
fight
against
against
the
the Wing
Wing
of
of Death.
Death.
Duque had magically discovered
when
that
did
Nesario
Nesario
had
through the
disguised
dark portal
himself
and
as a
roll
human
back to
and
planet
sneaked
Draenor?
into the Lordaeron
There was no
palace.
record at all.
Duque
In
had
addition,
used him in turn to
Gul'dan's
lure the
skull
four of them to
contained
finally
Gul'dan's
eliminate
memories,
Nesario,
and had a
the
tribute
credit was
similar
still
to
due
the
to the
whispers
four
of
of
the
them.
ancient gods.
Without the
that
other
had driven
dragon
Nesario
kings,
crazy.
it would have been impossible to
artifact?
kill the
It was
rebellious
clearly
Black
a
Dragon
magic
King.
artifact.
Anyway,
If an
in
ordinary
Malygos'
person held
eyes,
it, they would
creatures other
definitely
than
become
dragons were
mentally ill.
always secondary.
Thinking of this,
Duque had
Duque
already
could only
obtained a
sigh.
transcendent
A
position in the
transmigrator
Wondrous
was
Shrine
not
without
omnipotent,
doing any real
since
work
he
at
could
all.
not use foresight
Seeing
to
that he had
prevent this
finally
tragedy,
killed his
he
great
could only
enemy
do his
and
best.
avenged his spouse
This was
after
the reason why
10,000
Duque
years,
had released so
Malygos
much
did
black
not mind
technology.
giving this little human a
after
little
Duque
gift.
described the
However,
danger of Nizul,
Duque's neither
and
humble nor
exaggerated that he
arrogant
had the
behavior
power
made
to
him
open the
very
dark
upset.
portal.
Lang and Anduin's faces were as black
sounded
as
like
the
a
bottom of a
thunderclap
pot from the nine
Anduin
heavens.
said,
Duque
"All right
was
then,
still the
since
combination
you have
of
determined
dead-fish
that
eyes
Nizul
and a
will lead
poker
the
face.
tribe to attack again.
Is this the attitude
So how
you
long
have
do you
when
think they
begging
have?
the great king of magic
Duque was
to
a little
bestow a
speechless.
reward? Because
With
of his
this
appearance,
sentence, World
Duque
War II,
sentenced
which was
Malygos
supposed
to
to end
end 6 years
You want me to
after the
work
dark
for you?
portal, had
You've
already
taken your
ended at
revenge
the
and
end of the
vented your
second
anger,
year, and you still have the
and
nerve to
Nizul
make
had
things
sent his
difficult
men
for
for me?
play tricks on
You don't want to give
Azeroth
me a
in
reward,
the 8th year
right?
of the dark portal's history. When you become
Duque
a boss
made a
later,
judgment,
I'll get
and
rid of
raised
you
2
and take it
fingers.
myself.
2 years.
Duque cursed in his
maybe
heart
less,
while
maybe
expressing
more.
his attitude.
Draenor is
He
indeed being
you can
destroyed,
choose not to give
but the
it.
process
If
is
not,
still
then I'll leave
relatively
first.
slow.
Can you
This is
please
because
open
we
a
have
spatial
destroyed
door?
or crippled
Duque's
almost all the
casual
top-ranked
attitude
tribes
made
in the war.
Malygos even
The
more
hunting
angry.
grounds of Draenor will be
Insignificant
much
human.
emptier.
Lang
Recognize
rubbed
your
his chin.
identity. In
So
front
the
of my
orcs
power,
will first
you
fight
are
amongst
nothing.
themselves, and then have the time to attack our
The
alliance?
clouds were boiling
Duque
fiercely,
said with
as if
certainty,
the wrath of the
yes,
heavens would fall
just
in the
like
next
how
moment.
Tarenas wanted
The
to
rage
annex
of the Dragon
Alterac.
King was not
the
a
orc
joke.
clans that have
The
preserved their
terrifying
strength
aura that
must flowed
first
out of
shuffled
Malygos'
before they will
shrine
respond
room
made
to
the
giant
Nizul's call.
dragons that had yet to
Lang
disperse
nodded.
in the shrine tremble.
Well, although
what the
another
hell?
war is
Who
not
had
good
angered the
news,
Dragon
we
King
are fortunate
Malygos.
that our alliance has a
Alexstrasza
very
could not
far-sighted
help but
commander
yell
like
across
you.
the void.
2
Hey,
years is enough for us to
Malygos,
do a lot
what the
of
hell are
things.
you doing? We don't know
Why are you
anything about
yelling
the
at my
railway that you
savior?
mentioned.
You will be
Malygos'
busy for a
anger
long
subsided
time
when
a
we
little.
go back this time.
After all,
This
Anduin
was the
chuckled.
Dragon Slumber Shrine,
Duque nodded.
and he was still
Before
very
that,
afraid of
I may have to take a
Alexstrasza,
leave.
who had recovered her
Huh.
strength. Lang was
I'm
puzzled.
just teaching a human
I'm
how to
going
be
to practice
polite to
magic.
dragons.
Oh, what the
I
hell are you
almost
doing?
forgot that you are a
Duque
mage.
is an honored guest
Duque
of our
was
Dragon
speechless.
Slumber Shrine. We invited him to witness the
Chapter
ceremony today.
628.
We agreed
At
to let him
3
take
o'clock
over
in the
as a
morning,
guardian,
Duque,
and you have
who
a
had
part in
returned
it.
to his bedroom,
What's wrong
looked
with you
out
all
of the
of a
window
sudden?
into the distance.
Malygos did
Thick
not
darkness
speak.
covered Duque's
Only Duque
entire
knew that
field
in
of
the
vision.
end, it was
The
because
hustle
his
and
strength
bustle
was
of
too
the day
low,
of triumph
so
still
low
echoed
that
in
even
his
if he
ears.
asked for a
And
reasonable
Duque knew
reward,
that new
it would be
challenges would
seen
continue
as
to
a
come.
charity. Since
In
he
the
had become
past
a part of
800
Azeroth,
years,
he
when had the
couldn't
previous
ignore the
guardians,
challenges that
Aegwynn
came one
and
after
Medivh,
another.
been bullied.
That's right. Before
It
the
was
Titans
easy
of
for
the
a
Pantheon
demigod
really
to make
reached
other
Azeroth
existences
and fought
forget
the
their
burning
original
legion,
identity,
the world of
and
Azeroth was like a
instinctively
damn
respect them.
defensive game. No matter how many waves of enemies you defeated, there would always be
Chapter
new enemies coming.
636.
Persevere,
Come to think of
and
it,
there might be a
Duque
chance
was a
of
mere
survival.
Morningstar mage.
Give up,
but
and
he
that
had
would be
managed
the
to
end
kill
of all
the
things.
greatest nightmare
Looking
of the
back,
dragons
the
in
Windrunner
10,000
sisters,
years,
who had
been
been
hugging
hugging
each other to
Nesario,
sleep,
it would be
raised their
unreasonable
eyebrows
for
and
the other
opened their
dragons
sleepy
not
eyes.
to be jealous.
Aurelia
Was
said,
there anything
Duque,
more
are
heaven-defying
you done
than
talking? Duque's feet in this
Sasha
world?
said,
Of
go
course.
to sleep.
There was a deeper
You've done
reason.
very well today.
Malygos had
Leave
not
tomorrow's
finished
matters
venting
to
his
tomorrow.
anger. He had
With
once
that,
been the strongest
the
of the 5 fragrant female bodies,
but his
trembled
wife
and moved
child,
to a gentle
and
position.
almost all his subordinates had died
and
in
lay
one
down,
go.
hugging
He had been a
Sasha
single
on his
dog
left and Aurelia on his
a single
right.
dragon for
If there were no
10,000
future
years.
crises,
He had
this
finally
would
managed
already
to
be
kill
a
his
perfect
enemy.
life.
But not only
In
was
his
the
heart,
enemy
Duque
unrepentant,
said to himself,
the one who had
"Yes,
stolen his
the
limelight
people
was
I
a
love,
lowly race
the
with
people
no
I
ability
cherish,
that he
the
looked
world
down
I
upon.
love.
This is what
Rationally,
I'm fighting for in
knew that he
Azeroth.
should be grateful
In the
to
following
Duque.
days,
Duque
when it came
was
to
very
love,
busy.
he couldn't
Whether
control
it was
his temper.
coordinating
He was a
post-war
little
reconstruction
crazy,
with the
but
various
his
countries,
madness was more
discussing with the
directed at
dwarves how to
Nesario
modify
and the Black
various
Dragon
farm
army.
tools,
But he
or
had
carrying
nowhere
out
to
his
vent
railway
his
plan.
anger. He could not attack his own people. December 31st, Duque, 2 years after entering the dark portal, felt like he had been implicated. Duque had been waiting after slightly intimidating Malago's magic transmission, quickly smoothed things over and sent a secret message to Duque. Sorry, that guy froze Nasario's he wasn't head, like this before. Then took him he used to be very happy Dragon and Legion was and did not mind spreading after magic to other races. Laughing for a long time. It's just that after he was finally willing to take the traitor's head back. Quickly said a lot of things, held his forehead all of which were ignored by Duque. His wife and all his children were killed, something else, and he couldn't take revenge. That was the course of 10,000 years. Duque did not know if he could go crazy against Nizul's how much rationality a fellow like Malygos then it was likely that there would not the result of the dragon's expedition against Draenor and praying to Buddha. However, regardless of whether there would be an expedition or not, of the Blue Dragon Legion's crazy actions in the future would not be extinguished. As for Malygos, the Third War at the Dark Portal was bound to come. When will the celebration of the Dragon Sleep Shrine be held? To do with Malygos? To Dragonbone Wasteland at 9 o'clock in the morning on the 1st of January. It was easy to associate it with the undead army of the Calamity Army. The ceremony has been prepared for a long time, which was the pinnacle of the undead dragons from the other no matter how many skeletons and zombies the humans turned into, they would be nothing in her face of true extraordinary power. It was just that there were too many of them, and it was more killing of the traitor, spitting out dragon's breath and roasting beef in the snowy land. With the Ice Dragon army, they waited for a long time, change from but the traitor's head did not appear. Where did the Ice Dragon army of the undead temporarily handed over Nasario's Dragon army that was killed? The head was the most valuable of all things. The leader of the Ice Dragon head had a very sacred meaning. Was definitely one of the best generals. It was under the Lich King. No matter what. Who was as if it was missing a lot of things. Was there a need to ask? After waiting for a full wife of Malygos was the king of magic to bring back the traitor Black Dragon King's head. Just in time to hear Alexstras's if the other 3 dragons were not sulking. There was nothing they could do. I know Malygos' attitude isn't good, but he's still a good person, and he's ready to resume his duties as the dragon aspect. Unless a certain dragon did something too outrageous and was considered by the other dragons to have exceeded the scope of redemption, they would bear with it for the sake of being of the same race. Duque refused to answer no matter what. Time tomorrow. She thought that Duque was going to have a heaven and earth collision with Malygos in the dragon's third year. The kings of Lordaeron were still busy with various meetings. Both sides were on the same side. Reconstruction, she really didn't want them to have a conflict. Multilateral trade, redemarcation of territorial borders, determination of sea with you about your attitude. All kinds of troubles were still plaguing every king, so show me your magic skills, every lord under them. Originally, in Stormwind, these kinds of matters become a radiant moon from Duque. What's Duque wrong with had to first ask for leave from suddenly straightened at half past the corner of his mouth still busy in Duque's mysterious arc. Even though Duque was the only one going to the Wormrist Shrine to attend the dragon race celebration, it was as if the entire upper echelons go this time for the sake of the Red Dragon Queen. Lang and Anduin were chatting in the corner of the room. This big blue clown into a dead end, dressed in a green ranger's outfit, when Malygos gave up monitoring the magic in the world and supported her elbows with her palms. She leaned against the wall, watching her sister and Elugia fiddle with Duque's forbidden human body refinement technique, who looked like he had nothing to live for and was already a useless living creatures within 1,000 miles of a cross. Once Malygos found out about miserable. But he still had to look straight ahead. Crazy. There was no need for the Scourge robe is too floaty. He could kill these two Sasha held her chin and by himself. I think so too. Alexstrasza didn't know that Duque had so many bad ideas in his stomach, bared his teeth. But she was a woman with amazing intuition. Will the dragons appreciate it? She suddenly realized that Duque really had a way to kill Malygos like he killed an hour and a half. Feeling that Duque had finally let go of the idea in his heart or not is another matter. Heart was filled with mixed feelings. The key is that you have to show your attitude. Duque thought to himself, I've never heard of any human being entering the Wormrist Shrine in the past 10,000 years. I also want to dig a hole for that Elugia, who had always been weak, Duque suddenly raised his head and stared at Malygos. Duque couldn't help but complain in his heart. There was still a mysterious smile. Do I have to tell you that the dragons will not be able to withstand the siege of the Wormrist Shrine? Let me show you the right path and seek help from the other races to make the place as lively as Malygos almost wanted to smash Duque's face with magic stabs. No, but when Malygos saw her Majesty Alexstrasza had conjured human magic power, it's very fitting. Duque injected his distant woman had a good figure and was good-looking. It was a scene man that would find her to be pleasing to the eye if she wore a memory of Syndagosa from the gorgeous complaining was one thing, like an irresponsible visionary. Duque gave the system Alpha mission. After much effort, it was finally over. Duque set off with a wave of Malygos.
Almost as soon as he crossed the portal to the Dragonbone wilderness, tendons, froze blood, like a dog, and flesh into the coldness of the Dragonbone wilderness in the extreme north of the continent was completely different from the coldness of the insignificant northern rapidly consumed. It was like the winter in the south before transmigration and the winter in Siberia. At first, how could they be compared? The bone dragon looked like a lizard skeleton at the level of a primary school student's drawing. A warm current rose from the magic circuit from a chaotic mess into a specimen with the same time clearly visible. A warm fire elemental shield covered his body. Every cartilage that connected each other. But it was very good to resist the biting cold of no scent. At this time, Malygos couldn't help but tremble slightly. This wasn't my old friend. If what happened before was just a came over and gave reorganization of the biological specimen, it turned out that the man and the dragon were just acquaintances of the concept of magic. But after Duque rescued the Red Dragon Queen and plotted to kill Duque's hand, which had become 10 meters long, Your Majesties will arrive in half an hour of a magic circuit. Now, let me introduce you to the representatives of the various races constructed in this phantom bone dragon. Chapter 629. This is the ambassador of the Green Dragon Army, Lord Isarios. Could actually construct a new magic circuit introduced in an illusion that he had created out of golden hair and green armor. Many dragon geniuses had trouble constructing a good magic circuit in the body that they were most familiar with. As a dragon, constructing a magic circuit in an illusion that they were not even familiar with. It was already very polite for them to shake hands with you in human form. This was because there was an aura that Malygos was in their dragon familiar with flowing in the newly born magic circuit. Was one of the top male dragons in the Green Dragon Legion. Specialized frost magic circuit was as tall as a 3-story building. How could you possibly know what Syndagoso was good at? In the independent space of the temple, Her Majesty Isra asked me to tell you that the Emerald Dream has been corrupted. Similarly, she can only send a spirit to attend the ceremony, who had poked his head out of the cloud, she will personally solidified. Neltharian's betrayal 10,000 years ago was the greatest shame of the dragons of Azeroth. This is the ambassador of the Dragon Army. Only the names and numbers of the dead were recorded. Guidance, other than those ancient dragons that could be counted, this was a dragon with anything about the blue dragon and a human warrior's attire. Malygos had just been to the natural mausoleum of his spouse. He was betrayed and there were no traces of anyone touching it at all. Was killed in the battle. Then how did Duque know that Syndagoso was a frost dragon and handsome face? An all-elemental dragon like imagine the legendary deeds of this guy in the original history. Performance continued. He was shot down from the sky. Not only did the body of the bone dragon, by the dwarves, which was almost identical to Syndagosa, he was controlled by a demon surrounded by magic and turned into the first white muscles could also be seen growing on the white countless players, which were becoming thicker and thicker. He was chased by the black dragons in the cataclysm and went to seek refuge with Azhara bloodline, and in the end, he found Azhara. The mana in Duque's body continued to be consumed, but with the help of the system up by the Twilight Dragon and the orange staff girl who supported him died. Every bit of mana was used to create the Horde's airship during the Battle of Theramore. This move of Duque's was instantly destroyed the Horde's airship of his imagination. What made Duque under his control, this guy actually became a dragon aspect in the original history, becoming more than 50 meters long. The biggest headache for countless players was that he would pick up Jaina in the future. A layer of unbelievably beautiful blue dragon combat value, then this guy's toughness was fine. Blood. That's right. At the same time, the term smaller and finer branches of magic circuits were also being laid down. Duque was a little embarrassed. Malygos was a little puzzled to beat. Hello, humans and high elves were very superficial in the use of magic. No, it's the first time we've met. It was already impressive that they were able to construct a few large magic cycles in their bodies and form a circuit. In anime, they could not care about the minor details at all. Flowing, not to mention control, and you would always feel that they were very beautiful, elegant, and beautiful. They did not know that this level of control was necessary for a powerful spellcaster. This feeling was like looking at a big bun with 36 branches of the same thickness. It was as strange as it could get with 108 branches of the same humor. Perhaps Duque would have already burst out laughing. It was not just the number and thickness of the branches was a good-tempered fellow, or not, but his standards were too low to filter out the impurities in the circuit. He smiled. And how to circulate the pure magic power and discharge the impurities. That we'll meet again everything in the future. Was necessary for a real senior rank sorcerer. With the relationship between the hero and the boss, or elves. Those radiant moon mages had actually done all of this intentionally or unintentionally. Duque couldn't see only anything. Then did they have the perfect magic circuit that countless mages and he pressed down with his left hand that was why Malygos was inexplicably surprised. Duque finally saw it. How could Duque use such low mana to perform micro-operations that even those with abundant mana couldn't do? Soon, had white hair and two could not be bothered to look at all this. She was only as tall as Duke's waist, blue dragon and she appeared in the form of his female spouse priest. Malygos could not help but mutter his spouse's name. That she looked like a cute creature that girls liked. The illusion in front of him was so realistic, I wanted to pick her up and then play with her. Flowing in the illusion. This was not a little familiar and nostalgic. In the eyes of those weird uncles, he almost thought that would receive a minimum of 3 years in prison or a maximum had awakened and obtained a new life. This was a legal lowly. Malygos would have taken it as Duke's blasphemy against his mate. I want to pick her up and rub her face Duque to display his talent in magic. Rare bronze dragons that was relatively friendly to humans. Had mixed feelings. In history, she didn't even have any record of fighting in public. There was no familiar voice or smile. Together with Krasis, even so, Malygos and Isarios felt that a part of his heart that had been missing for 10,000 years had been mended and healed. Your Excellency, he suddenly realized that Duque seemed to have played a more important role in this revenge plan than he had imagined. Distracted. He also suddenly realized that this insignificant human that he had always ignored and looked down on had some kind of fine control of magic that even he could not compare to. I feel like you're thinking about something very rude. Sigh. The little gnome put her hands on her hips in dissatisfaction. And the illusory Syndicos' movement is even cuter. Malygos felt as if he had been struck by a whip. In the end, pulling him back from his memories to reality. That's right. If she was beaten up by Cromie for such a silly reason, then even Alexstrasza wouldn't protect her. Malygos said calmly. I was just thinking, if there's anything you need my help with, I hope you can look for me in the future. Malygos' aggressive aura was gone, so active, but he was still stubborn. The complaints about you changing history are almost piling up to the roof of my dragon cave. I recognized your strength. Sorry, from the moment Nesario was killed, I didn't treat you as an ordinary human, but as a guardian. Even if you're a proxy, your Majesty's strength is too unsightly. Do please take this thing and get lost. Stretched out his hand gracefully, and a huge rectangular flying dragon made of fire elements like bright appeared in front of Duque from the sky. What a beautiful move! With a sharp fire elements had always given people the impression that they were Duque's head open and untamable. But the moment Duque dodged, in the hands of Krasis, at a place master magus of the dragon race in front of Duque's eyebrows. Not only did it take on a physical form, it also did it on a flying carpet that was harmless returned to humans. A contemptuous look. Duque's system genie instantly scanned it and confirmed this. Duque. Fine, all right, you win. I'll give you 101 points for integrity by showing off my muscles. I'm not afraid of you getting arrogant with an extra point. Why not? Duque grandly stepped forward. Duque grabbed the light of the stars and moon that was floating in front of his eyebrows. Seen through the mysteries of the flying carpet before stepping on it. There was no need to ask immediately. One had to know that Duque was only a morning star wizard. The stars and moon, how could he have such good eyesight? Emitting a mysterious glow, ordinary mortal, fused into his palm and rushed into his magic circuit with a domineering aura. Of this. But Duque clearly heard the incomparably strong beating of his heart. Malygos couldn't help but have a higher opinion of Duque, suddenly slowing down by 10 times. One guessed, it was like a drum that had been stretched out at high speed towards the dragon slumber shrine. That feeling made Duque feel under normal circumstances. The next bone-chilling wind that blew let out would be enough to freeze them. Under Krasis' fire elemental force, the size of a tennis ball was being pumped out of his aorta to one side, but even the chilly wind that blew towards them was dispersed. The warm wind was as comfortable as taking a stroll even though in the fields in autumn. Was a university student who had taken a basic course on the physiological structure of the human body. He had never thought that mages were more like in the center of the Dragonbone wilderness. 2 and 3 dimensions covered in ice and what appeared in his field of vision was the souls of the dying dragons of the body who were seriously injured or seriously ill, or had exhausted their lifespan, returned to control the functions of his body. Dragon skeletons could be seen everywhere on the snowy ground, making the lungs breathe, incomparably hard dragon skeletons and the liver into the human world. In the illusory vision of the two-dimensional world, that would attract the coveted eyes of countless magic circuit. However, the flow of magic in the mental domain was more like inevitably existed in the dragon of a large tree, except for the root at the end that was used to the dragon slumber shrine more than once in the game. From the outside when he witnessed this unprecedented miracle with his own eyes, the shape of a ring. Still felt it was a continuous cycle on the left and right sides of his field of vision, stronger and more powerful circuit, and an endless wilderness of bones. This was not a complicated process. In the middle, there was a huge ravine that divided the entire Dragonbone wilderness into stars and moons. Standing at the end of the ravine body was simply pressing down on Duque's body with glittering golden shrine with countless golden domes attached to the main tower appeared in Duque's field of vision. To be able to achieve it in one step, as if it had been hammered by a sledgehammer. Thorough preparations. The Dragon Slumber Shrine in the game was reaching the radiant illusory data model. Such a wonderful thing. If there was a word to describe the Dragon Slumber Shrine that Duque saw with his true eye, he could only think of
one
at the
word,
dark portal,
miracle.
and even in order to
On the
face
flying
the first,
carpet,
Duque
and his
party slowly approached the main entrance of the Dragon Slumber Shrine.
that might appear. On both
Duque
sides
had
of the
long
main
since
entrance
built a
stood a
magic
row
foundation.
of Dragonians.
This was like building a
Dragonians
skyscraper that
colored
needed to be
skin,
built with
and
a
apart from
foundation.
standing in human
If
form,
Duque's
there
previous
was not
magic
a
circuit
single
was
part
third
of their
rate,
body that
it would be like
resembled a
using
human.
a matchstick
They
to
had a
act as the
terrifying
pier of a
physique
bridge
that would
across
make
the
mortals
sea,
feel
and it would
oppressed
turn
just
into
by
drags
standing
with
in
one
front of them.
push.
They were
The
nearly
magic
3
circuit
stories
model that
tall
he used
and 8
was
meters
almost
tall.
the best model
They held
that
a
he could
huge
find in
metal
his
spear
era,
in one
with
hand
the
and a
incomparably
huge hammer that
thick
could be
arcane
used as an
throne
iron
as
felt
the
by
cornerstone.
humans.
Phoenix
They wore
flames
heavy armor
and
that
ice
even the
crown
strongest
flew
warhorse
at
could
the same
not
time,
carry, and
not
stood
only
majestically
that, with
on
the
both
perfect
sides
connection
of the
between
main
him
entrance.
and the system elf.
Not only them,
the mind
but there
control
were also
system that
hundreds
Duque
of young
built was
dragons that were
completely beyond
guardians
this
of the
era.
shrine hovering in
Precisely
the air
because he
on
was
both
clear about the
sides of the main
development of
entrance.
mages in the
Every
original
100
history,
young dragons
as well as
formed
the
a
usage
row,
and power
and there were
of new
6
magic.
rows on both
Duque's
sides of the
creation
air
of
in
the
an
inverted
inverted trapezoid shape.
expansive.
Be
He
that
strived
as it
to make
may,
sure that the
even
magic
the burly
flowing in the circuit was
or the
pure
young
enough
dragon
and that a
guardian
perfect
whose body
balance
was as
between the
massive
three
as a
types of
temple were
magic
as
could be
insignificant
achieved,
as
which was
ants
in line
front
with
of
the magic
huge
rules
arched
of this
door that
world.
easily surpassed
Duque's
the
eyes
edge
were
of Duque's
flashing
vision.
with arcane
According
brilliance
to the
as he looked
system
into
elf's
his
judgment,
body.
the width of the arched door was 512
Although the
meters,
light of stars and
the
moon
height
was
was
very
an
rough,
unimaginable
the magic
1024
circuit that was
meters.
expanding and
This was
thickening
the true
showed
giant door that the 5
flexibility.
dragon aspects
The inner
had
wall
not
of
felt
the aging
crowded
magic
when they
circuit
entered
was
at the
peeling
same
off
time.
rapidly,
and the residue that
even
had
by
lost
the
its
standards
purpose
of the
flowed
Dragon
along
clan,
with the
this was
high-speed impact of
undoubtedly
the
a
magic
super
power
door.
to the smaller,
If Duque were to
finer
walk,
end
it would
branches
take
of
him
the
at
circuit
least an hour
and
to
was
climb
expelled
up the
from the
steps
body
of the main
through the
entrance
root-like
and
filaments.
step into the huge
The walls
main
of the
entrance.
circuits in his body
Duque's
were like a
lungs were
sponge,
filled with cold
greedily
air,
absorbing
not because of the
light
weather,
of the
but
stars
because
and
of the
moon
shock
that came
He
from
didn't even have
outside
the
his
time
body.
to look at the
The
relief
new
sculptures
light
on the
spread to
roof
every
and the
circuit
huge
in his
pillars.
body, along with
Just
the
looking
flow
at the
of
roof
magic
of the
power.
Dragon Slumber
It was a
Shrine
strange
that seemed to
beauty
cover
of
the
the
entire
rising
sky,
sky,
even a
transmigrator like him who had seen the world couldn't
everything
help
with
but
light.
want to worship
At
this
this moment,
miraculous building.
Duque suddenly
This
ran
was
into
not
trouble.
something that science
When the
could
power
do.
of light of
From
the stars
this,
and moon
it could be deduced
broke
how
into the circuits
amazing
of
the power
arcane
of the
throne
Titans of creation
and
was.
crown of ice.
Anglo-Dis is
problem.
mighty, but
A
string
Phoenix
of
flame
draconic
didn't
words
seem to
echoed
match.
in the shrine.
It wasn't that
With the help of the
Malygos had tricked
translator,
Duque
was
light
shocked
of the
to find
stars
that it was
and
a
moon,
giant
as
dragon
the original
reciting
magic
Duque's
power
deeds.
of the world of
From
Azeroth
discovering the
could perfectly
conspiracy
match
of the
it
Black
as
Dragon
long as
King,
it was the
to
magic
sneaking
power
into the
system of
Emerald
this
Dream
world.
to summon
What was
Isra,
wrong
to
was the
summoning
environment
the 3
here.
dragon aspects,
This was the
to killing
dragon's
his way
sleep
into
temple.
grim battle
It was
to save
fine if it was a
Alexstrasza,
neutral power,
and finally
but wasn't
to discovering
advancing
the
the
power
power
of the Phoenix
and
and
looking
looking
for
for
an
an
opportunity
opportunity
to set up
which
an
was the
ambush.
holy land of the
Finally,
dragons.
he helped the
As if
dragon
provoked,
clan eliminate
the
this
power
great
of the dragon
traitor who had been at
temple
large
began
for
to invade
10,000
Duque's
years.
body in turn.
When this dragon
Its
language
purpose
was
was
recited,
very clear.
it was
To
filled with
destroy
a
the
sense of
magic
mystery
circuit
and
of the
a
Phoenix
wonderful
that had
rhythm.
provoked the power
It sounded
of the
like
dragons.
an elegant poem
The
with
dragon
cadence,
power that
not
came
a
from
pale
all
and
directions
straightforward
carried
narration.
a faint draconic
Duque
might,
could clearly
and it
feel
not
that the
only
gazes of the
continuously
draconics
impacted
and
the
dragon
barrier of
guardians
Duque's
had begun to
consciousness.
change.
It
There was
also
doubt.
crazily
There was
destroyed everything
disbelief.
related to the
There was
Phoenix,
curiosity,
the circuit,
but more
magic
than that,
power,
there
and
was
the body
admiration.
cells that were
The
permeated
dragon
with the
clan
power of the
advocated
Phoenix
force.
flame. But they
At this
also
moment,
admired wisdom.
Duque was almost
If the 4
against the
dragon kings
mysterious
could break
power
the
of the
shackles of the
entire
demon
dragon
soul
sleep
with their own
temple.
strength,
Ugh.
why couldn't they do
Caught
it for the
off guard,
past 10,000
Duque
years?
vomited a large
If the 4
mouthful of
dragon
blood on the
kings could
spot.
easily kill
Not
the
good.
great traitor
I
Nesario,
miscalculated.
why did they let him escape
Malygos'
the last
eyelids
time?
twitched.
Through this
At this
introduction,
moment, he was
the
hesitant.
dragons began to
As
understand
the king of
that
magic,
if there was any
he
difference
certainly
between the
understood
past
what had
and the
happened to
present,
Duque.
it was because
If he
of
didn't
the
do
addition
anything,
of Duque
Duque's
Marcus.
circuit would collapse
These
and he would
draconics
become
and
a
dragon
useless
guardians
person
could not
in the
help
world
but
of
be in
magic.
awe of Duque.
He hesitated
After
for a
entering
tenth of
the
a second,
huge shrine,
but he still
they
saw that
stretched
the
out his
4 colored
claws and
dragons
was
had
ready to help
surrounded the
Duque.
square in the middle
Whether
of the
it was for
shrine
public
in all
or private
directions.
reasons, he couldn't
There
let
was no
Duque
lack
die
of
here.
ancient dragons
However,
that were more than 50 meters long. Faster than
However,
no matter how big they were, the dragon
how sharp their teeth were,
or how ignored their dragon breath
forcibly broke
in
through
this
his space.
sacred ceremony
Of course,
to exterminate
this had
the
a
traitor.
lot to do with
Only
him not
Duque,
objecting,
who was in the
this
middle of the
also
square,
reflected the
was the
importance
focus
of Duque in
all
her
the
eyes.
dragon clan's
She
vertical
actually
pupils.
rushed in at the risk
You'd
of
better
falling
pass
out
the
with
small
Malygos
test later.
Idiot.
Krasus suddenly
Give
said
up your
without
Phoenix
rhyme or
circuit.
reason.
I'll give you
something
pass.
better.
Pass what?
Roar. As she spoke,
First,
a large number of red
dragons
opened their
sharp,
Duque's back.
scarlet mouths
This time,
wide at
Duque
truly
and let out
saw
waves
how
of
terrifying
the
dragon
strength of the
roars
top
that sounded like a
existences in this
tsunami.
world was.
As long
He
as a
believed
dragon
that the
roared,
mental
there would
barrier
be
that
dragon
he
might.
and the system
The
elf
fierce
had
pressure
figured
of
out
a
together
creature
was
at the
very
top of the
complete.
food chain
This was
immediately made
already
it
layered,
difficult for
and
Duque
just looking
to
at
breathe.
it made his scalp
It was
tingle.
as if two boulders
According
were
to
pressing
military
down on
theory,
Duque's
this
chest.
not only had
Every time he
cover,
inhaled,
but it also
the boulders
took
would
into
take
account the
characteristics
characteristics
of
inward,
flexibility
and every
and
time he
sturdiness.
exhaled, failed, he would have to face the counterattack of 100 kilograms in the world of magic.
Roar.
However,
the
under the
bronze
attack
dragon
of the
roared.
Red Dragon Queen,
This time,
such an
Duque
incomparably
only felt that the
complex
pressure
mental
on his
defense
chest had
collapsed
increased
like
by
100
snow.
kilograms.
She didn't
It
have
was
that
the kind of
patience.
oppressive feeling that
Her
he could
method
not
was
bear
simpler
even a
and
little
more
more
violent.
pressure.
In the
However,
first contact,
the bronze
she found
dragon's
the
roar
attribute
had
of
the
the
mental
mental
power
power
in
in
the
the
weight of his past and directly dissolved it with the corresponding attribute.
That kind of pressure
You
that
are the
seemed to be
5
measured
elements.
in tons almost
She
made
is the
Duque
reverse
spit out
5
a
elements.
mouthful of blood.
She
Directly
erased
what are these
the mental
big lizards
attribute
trying
on
to
your
do?
mental barrier and
Almost
decompose the
subconsciously,
willpower
Duque
into the
began
most
to circulate
primitive
his
divine
magic
thoughts.
circuit,
If she had
injecting
the
magic
intention
into
to
every
Duque,
muscle in his
Duque
body,
would be an
using
idiot
it
by
magic
now.
to resist this
Obviously, she
increasingly
wasn't.
strong pressure.
The flames were clearly violent and wanton.
Suddenly,
After
the blue
Alexstrasza
dragons
took over
also
part
roared.
of Duque's mental
That
control,
strange roar
she
seemed to be
decisively
destroying
blew
the
up
magic
the Phoenix
circuit
in
Duque's
body with maximum
expelled
power.
it all out.
If it were a
Duque
weaker
mage,
mage,
spat out
their
another
magic
mouthful of
circuit
blood.
would have been
What
shattered
was even more
instantly,
strange
and their
was that as
magic
soon
would
as
have gone
this
berserk,
mouthful of blood
causing
left
their
his
body
lips,
to collapse
it turned
and die.
into a turbid
Fortunately,
flame and disappeared.
Duque had the help of the
Duque
system
could
elf.
see that,
Under the dual
starting from
active
his
and
heart,
passive
there were
control,
hundreds of
Duque
thousands
barely
of golden
managed to
threads
fight the
spreading
pressure
out
from
from
the
his
dragon
heart
might
like
to a
tree
standstill.
roots. After
Roar.
reaching various
The
parts
green
of the body
dragon
that
that
had
blood
been
vessels
silent also
they
roared.
formed interlocking
Unlike the
rings
dragon
like
minds
veins
that
of
could
other races,
recycle waste,
the green
and
dragon's
return to
roar
the
was
heart.
not as domineering.
It did not have the kind of momentum that could topple everything, but it had the
Chapter
exquisite and
639.
pervasive feeling
These were
of
networks
quicksilver
of
spilling
various
on the ground.
sizes.
The green
These were the
dragon's
newly
roar was
born magic
obviously
circuits.
eroding Duque's
Magic
will.
power
that was many times stronger than a morning star began to circulate
Chapter
inside.
631.
It flowed
Duque felt like he
endlessly,
was in a trance,
surged and never
if his
stopped.
willpower had been
Even
divided
if
into
Duque's
2
life
levels
stopped,
before,
as long
his
as there
would
was
still
still
be
a will
his,
controlling
and
it,
the system
the
elf
magic
would
circuits
still be
could
the
still
system elf.
operate endlessly
But now,
and
what he
eternally.
felt was that the
Perhaps
Firebird's
the
might
undead
of the
in the
4
future
color
did
dragons
not
was
need
like
to
a
be
hammer,
disturbed by the
pounding on the
characteristics
core of the
of a
subway,
physical body and
hammering
could
with
focus on the
willpower
magic
while
circuits.
constantly
That
hammering
was
at
why there were
Duque's will.
so many
It
liches
also
and
led
great
to the
wizards.
sublimation of
If Duque
Duque's
was
spiritual
really a
domain,
cultivation maniac
and sublimation
who pursued mysterious
only needed
power,
an
he
opportunity.
would not be able to
Duque
achieve
was
eternal
not
life.
a native of Azeroth.
Perhaps he would also
He
walk
had not
the evil
experienced
path
a
that many
childhood where he
wizards
had
had
to
taken
deal with
in
wolves
history.
and murlocs
Let's get
even
back
in
to
the
the
supposedly most
After
peaceful elven
Alexstrasza
forest.
destroyed his
He was
Phoenix
just a
Flames
college animal
magic
who grew
circuit,
up in a big
Duque's
city.
situation did
This
not
lack of
completely
experience
improve.
made him destined
Instead,
to have a
it showed
slightly
signs
weaker
of worsening.
psychological
It
endurance
was not
in the
that the
face of
flame
danger
circuit
and
that the
the
Red
pressure
Dragon
in battle.
Queen had created
For
for
example,
Duque was
he was
not
always
good,
easily
but it
hit
was
by the
similar to the
warlock's
problems
fear.
that Duque had
Duque
encountered in the
also
past.
had his advantages.
It was because it was
He
too
was a
good that it began
transmigrator
to
who remembered the
overbearingly
general
occupy the
situation.
share of all
The
the magic
experience of
circuits
looking
in
at the
Duque's
overall
body.
situation as an
Alexstrasza
outsider
frowned.
gave him a
She
sense
had
of
also
superiority
discovered the
that the
problem.
natives could
She
never
could build
understand.
all of Duque's
This
magic
mentality
circuits
of
according to
standing
the
at the
template
top
she
of
could
the
make,
ecological
but this would
chain
cause
and
looking
Duque's
down like a
attributes
god
to
was
go
his
from a
trump
perfect
card.
balance of
Duque
multiple
suddenly
attributes
became
to a
angry.
single fire attribute.
In the future, Duque
Smoke,
could only
dragon,
mix fire.
Forget.
At some point, Maligos
Onion?
came before the human and dragon.
I am Duque.
Alexstrasza.
I am Duque,
Is
who
this
rose
human
from
very
nothing
important
to become
to
a
you?
hero of the alliance.
The queen
and
gritted her
sat in the
teeth and
position of
nodded.
commander,
Recalling
I
the
am
bits and
Duque,
pieces
who
of
killed
Duque,
hundreds of thousands of
Maligos
orcs,
rarely
killed
changed
so
his
many
view of
chiefs,
humans.
made use
Perhaps
of
I
ghoul
really
Dan to become
underestimated
rich,
the
and
usefulness
killed
of this
Nefario,
human.
the wing
Perhaps.
of death.
You owe
I
me a
am
favor.
Duque, who is
With
determined
that,
to use
the humanoid
Ragnaros,
Maligos
the king of
extended
flames,
his hand
as a
to
lighter,
Duque,
and
his
break
hand
and purify
met
the Lich
Alexstrasza's
King's
and
frostborn
Frostborn
Duque's
Duque's
as an
chest.
air
It
conditioner
was
in the
also
future.
a magical
The
concept
one and
invasion,
only Duque
but
in
the
the
circuit
world.
that was
You
replaced
little
this
dragons
time was
who are
different.
only worthy of
Antonida's
EXP
crown of
actually
ice
dare to
was
shout at me?
destroyed and replaced with
Words.
Maligos'
Dragon's
unknown
might,
ice
right?
circuit. Then
No,
don't blame
it
me
wasn't
for
just
being
the
rude.
ice element.
System
Even
elf.
Duque's Archantroph was being
It was
modified.
a seemingly ordinary
It continued
snort,
to expand
but in the
and
ears of the
expand.
dragon race,
It was a
it had a
terrible
different
feeling.
meaning. Duque
The magic
opened his
circuits
mouth
in
wide,
Duque's body
and his
were
jaw
already
was
a
so
little
wide
chaotic
that his
and
throat
the
could be
elements in
seen.
the air seemed
He
to
wanted to
sense
shout,
Duque's
he wanted to
aura
roar,
and suddenly
but he
trembled.
couldn't utter a
In the
single
blink
word.
of an eye, Behind
the elements
was
in the
fire,
air
and in
appeared
front
in
was
4
ice.
different colors
This was
and
the
turned
true
into
meaning
4
of
magic
ice and
blades
fire.
that could be seen
However,
by the naked eye.
in order to
They
endure the
slashed
2
in all
heavens of
directions
ice and
like
fire,
lightning.
one's
At the
body
same
had to be
time,
strong
the
enough.
magical
The
elements
system
that contained
notification
some kind
rang
of
out
mysterious
nonstop.
power suddenly
Warning.
flashed.
Warning.
Like waves
Extremely
stacking on top of each
powerful
other,
fire
they
and
rose
ice
to an
magic
even
circuit
higher
patterns
peak,
discovered.
bursting with
The
endless
2
power.
magic circuit models
Ancient
demanded
dragon
a high
might.
amount of magic
When the
power
4 types
from the
of magic
Olympian
radiance that
mathematical circuit.
corresponded to the 4 color
Correspondingly,
dragon race
the power
slashed
will
down.
also
The young
increase
dragons were
correspondingly.
immediately scared out of their wits. Duque clenched his teeth
Never
and
in their
roared
wildest
in the
dreams
spiritual
would they have
world,
imagined
"Damn
that a
you.
mere
I'm
human
not
like
afraid of
Duque
you."
would actually be able
System
to
Elf,
release an
reverse
awe-inspiring
calculate
might
the
that
arcane
rivaled
circuit
that
model
of an
that
ancient
satisfies
colossal
both
dragon.
magic circuits
When
at
the
the
magic
same time.
blade slashed down,
The system
they only
calculated
felt
at
one
super
thing,
high
death.
speed.
In less than 20 milliseconds,
the 3 dragon kings
the calculation results
of the
dragon slumber godly
The calculation results are here
at the
but
same
it is
time.
seriously not
If it were the
recommended
dragon
for the host
ambassadors
to try
beside
based on this,
Duque, because
they would be
according to the
horrified.
calculations,
The magic
blaze
that
as
Duque
high as
counterattacked
99
was too fast.
369%.
It was so fast that it almost
flashed
by.
and the
Host,
strange and mysterious power contained within it even
My
disappeared
magic power
in an
is
instant.
not enough.
However,
But it doesn't mean
in
that
the
the
eyes
two
of
big
these
bosses
young dragons
don't have
and
enough
Dragonians,
magic power.
they saw a completely
If it were
different
anyone
scene,
else,
or
or
if
the
it were
light
in the
that
past,
corresponded to
Duque
their
would be
race's
courting
skin
death
colors
by doing
slashed
this,
down,
and it would be
blood
the kind of
immediately
courting
gushed
death
out
that he
of their
brought
necks.
upon himself.
Be it dragon
But it was
scales,
different now.
dragon skin,
In a sense,
or even the
this
hardest
was more
dragon
like an
bones that could
unkind
block
way
most
of
sharp
demanding
weapons in the
repayment
world.
for kindness.
They were all slashed
Human
in half.
relationships were
Their
very
heads
mysterious,
shot up into the sky,
blindly
and their
giving
bodies
without
slumped
asking
to
for
the
anything
ground.
in return.
The
Might
blood
make
of
the
the
other
dragon
party
stained
very
the
grateful at
sacred
first,
dragon slumber,
but after a long time,
dead.
it would make the other party
Countless
feel
dragons'
an
necks
unequal
suddenly
sense
shrunk,
of loss,
and countless
just
Dragonians
like
retreated in shock.
She was the noble
Touching
dragon
their still
queen,
intact
controlled
necks.
supreme
Was
power,
that an
and had
illusion?
thousands of red
Although
dragons
the blade
and
radiance
dragonoid
that was made of
warriors
this
under her
aura
command
only flashed for a
during
moment.
this period of
It was
time,
enough to
it
scare
always
every
gave her a
dragon
sense
out
of
of their
frustration
wits.
that she couldn't
In an
help
instant,
because of the
the
restrictions
entire
of the
dragon
rules
slumber
or for
godly
other
palace
reasons.
trembled.
And it was the reflection
Strictly
of the
speaking,
dragons retreating.
Duque didn't say
How
these
could
two
there be
words.
such a
Don't
terrifying
forget
person who
who
made
were in
tens
front
of
of and
thousands of
behind him.
Dragonians and
The two
thousands
dragon
of young
kings.
dragons feel
At
the
such a
illusion
close
of being
distance,
killed with
any
just his
small
aura.
movement of
Just
Duque,
recalling that
or
feeling
even the
made them feel
unnatural
cold and
vibration in
weak
the
all
air
over.
would be sensed
Every
by them.
dragon and
In fact,
dragonian asked
if Duque
themselves,
didn't choose
is
to
this
construct the
Duke
arcane
Marcus telling
circuit
us
as the
that he can kill
foundation,
us if he wants to?
Maligos almost wanted
At
to
this
force
moment,
the magic
seeing the
circuit that he
exaggerated
thought was
scene of
suitable to
tens of
Duque.
thousands of
Although
dragons
the
bowing
circuit that he
down,
forced into the
Crisis
past
and
was
the three
definitely
dragon
not as good
ambassadors
as the one that
beside
Duque
Duque
showed
created according to the
expressions of awe.
situation.
How
It would at least
breathtaking.
match the magic circuit that he
Congratulations.
and Alexstrasza
Congratulations.
sent out. Now,
For
under
humans,
such circumstances,
it's perfect.
Duque actually
Duque was
told
a little
them the arcane
confused.
circuit model to be
iPass,
strengthened
right?
through the spiritual
What is
connection.
this? This is
Maligos
something
couldn't
we've
help
all
but look at
experienced.
Duque in a higher
Of course,
light.
it's
It was
not
the
as
same
perfect
for the
as
king of
yours.
magic,
You'll
and it was
know
the
after
same
the
for the
ceremony.
life giver.
The
Crisis
two dragon
continued to
kings'
whet
faces were
Duque's
filled
appetite.
with undisguised
Okay,
shock.
you can now
They
go
were
to the
absolutely
highest
sure
floor
that
to
before
watch the
this,
ceremony.
Duque had
Duque
never come
was
into
speechless.
contact with such a
Of course,
top-notch
he
magic
knew that
circuit
the
model.
dragon slumber
It
godly
wasn't about
palace
secrecy.
was also divided
The
into
outstanding
upper,
physical
middle,
talent
and lower
of the dragon
floors,
race
but he
allowed
didn't know
them
that
to carry
these big
more
lizards
and
were so
stronger
cunning.
magic circuits.
They asked him to
In a
watch the
sense,
ceremony,
the magic
but
circuit
didn't say
models
which
that
floor
humans
he would
and
go
elves
to.
came into contact
It was
with
still
were
that
emasculated
fiery red
versions that
flying
had been
carpet,
repeatedly
and
weakened
Duque
so
and the
that
others were
humans
lifted
and
out
elves
of the
could
godly
afford them.
palace again, spiraling toward the highest floor
Secondly,
of the godly palace.
to create such a powerful
Finally,
magic
at the
circuit,
highest floor,
it also
Duque
required
saw
an
the three dragon
astronomical
kings
amount
in
of
human
magic
form.
power for humans.
Most mortals wouldn't
Alexstrasza
even
was the
consider
first
this
to greet
direction.
him.
For
Good
example,
job.
Sun King and
Maligos was a
Astrian
little
used the power of the
dissatisfied.
Sunwell to
This
charge
human
up.
kid secretly
Without
learned
deducing
the
how to
dragon's
use this
soul
power,
method.
how could he create the
Nozdormu was
corresponding
disdainful.
magic circuit model?
So what?
In such a short
Duque
time,
smiled
not
bitterly.
only did Duque deduce it,
So what?
but in the eyes
With
of
the
the
help
two
of the
dragon
platinum
kings,
disc in
this
his
model
hand,
was
which
even
was a
more
fragment
perfect
of
than
the
the
dragon
models they
soul.
could imagine,
He used
and
the
more
system to
suitable for
analyze
Duque's
part of
body.
the composition
They
principle,
sucked in a breath
and
of
even
cold
the
air.
formula similar
So there
to
are real
Firebird.
geniuses
However,
among humans.
the power of
The
the
two
magic
dragon kings
simulation
thought
of
at
the
the same
dragon's
time.
roar was
They
limited.
looked at each other
After
and
all,
immediately
he was not a
injected
real
magic
dragon
power
aspect
without
and did not
hesitation.
have a real dragon
This
soul.
was the invasion
Naturally,
of magic power.
it was impossible
and it was
for
almost
him
a
to have the
reverse
kind
of
of primary
terrifying
and
power
secondary
that could make
cooperation.
thousands of
The
dragons bow
golden
to him.
flame magic
At
power
best,
and the pure
the power
white
he
frost
exuded
magic
was
power
similar
each
to
drew
that
a
of a
circle in
10,000 year
Duque's
old
body.
dragon.
On
It
the
was
other
okay
side,
to scare
there was
the
an
small
additional
fry,
pure
but it was
arcane power
completely
that passed
ineffective
through
against
Duque's
a
body
dragon
and was
of Crisis
mobilized
level.
to the place that
The
Duque
red
wanted.
dragon queen
As
puffed
the
out her chest
foundation of the
proudly.
two major
In
magic
any
circuits,
case, the
Duque,
arcane circuit
the human
that Duque
hero who
used as
saved
the
me from the
foundation
dark
was
prison
also
has
continuously
proven his
thickening,
courage.
deepening,
He is
and
qualified to
consolidating.
stand here and
Its
watch the end of
construction speed
Nesario.
even surpassed the sum of the
Wasn't
two
Nesario
dragon
dead?
kings. Just
Three
as Duque
huge
was a little
compound
puzzled,
circuits
the
gradually
remains
took
of
shape in
Nesario
Duque's
suddenly
body.
appeared in the void in the middle of the highest floor of the godly palace, which was like a garden pavilion,
Chapter
completely
640.
open and
Closer.
supported by several huge stone pillars, so close that they almost overlapped. When the ice and fire circuits came into contact with the arcane circuits, the golden light
there was
of
no
dawn shone
impact like
into the
when Mars
highest level
collided
of the
with
temple,
Earth.
illuminating
Instead,
the surroundings
there was a strange
with a golden
harmony.
hue.
As if they had gone through thousands of calculations, penetrate the dark and special remains in the middle of the temple. Even Malygos, the remaining dark aura, was like a remnant bonfire. It was not like the harmony of singing and the basic matching of the key could be deceived under the cover of the music power of darkness. This was a true match that had lost their connection points of various sizes. Floating quietly in midair. This kind of coordination was completely beyond the scope of detection and correction by the human brain layer of black aura around the remains. Even for a magic-type dragon on every pillar like on the highest level such of the a minor temple, problem was not something he needed to consider. Suddenly opened for out him, of thin air. The human body was too could clearly feel the countless gazes from the few golden eyes that were focused on him. Leakage of magic that affected the body's functions on a large scale. Not every dragon or dragon man was qualified to watch the ceremony, nor was there any stiff feeling of mana splattering due to the mismatch. They quietly watched the end of fusion of water and milk under the watchful eyes from the connection of the main circuit to the fusion of the branch circuits. With a strange light appeared thousands of collisions in this moment of contact. That were suspended in midair at the highest level. Of the magic circuit, like a horizontal line on the horizon, it divided the entire sphere into two. The upper half was gold that refracted the light of dawn, and the lower half was black of magic output, starry sky. And the understanding of whether the amount of magic produced in the golden light above, or the deathly in the eyes of the two dragon kings, they both gave people the feeling that these two stars and light represented the world. They did not expect that Duque realized that the line was the boundary between life and death. Was the first to discover the problem. Soon appeared on the sphere, Duque's magic circuit was too large even for a radiant the sphere with a slight tremor, and dissipated into the air. Things. The vibration of Neserio's remained suddenly became more intense, needs, and a dragon's roar filled with some branches that would resentment the stability of the main circuit would be cut off. The voice of Neserio's soul actually was sounded in the entire temple magic circuit with a breaking dawn wizard as the standard, the supreme king of the dragon race. I am the purifier of the world. Isn't that so? Only ruler of the new world. Ambition. The dragons remains floating in midair with the level of a morning star wizard. The separated dragon smiled and like the ragged broken neck you kept still want me to help him as further? If trying to recombine. Malygos was a little displeased. Black dragon head seemed to want to return to its original position. But no matter how hard it tried, it could not do so. From the bank, either the broken immediately borrowed another dragon's chin. Or the dragon head rested on the shoulder next to its neck. At that moment, Neserio seemed to be in great pain. Was starting to stabilize. He screamed, and his body what he had been plotting for a long time. His dragon wings opened their hooked claws, that a demon as if he wanted to grab his head and make his body whole again. On Syndigos' he was so furious that he kept cursing. Wants to use dark magic to make every dragon into a bone dragon. Cursed Duque, who plotted against him, cursed the dragon slumber shrine, and even cursed like all a dog whose tail had been stepped on. Malygos immediately blew his beard and glared. Almost suspected the commander of the burning really coming back to life. The deceiver killed when he glanced at the calm expressions of the three dragon kings. Chairman Duque also entered into spectator mode. In the future, when the Lich King resurrects could no longer bear to watch the ugliness of Neserio's Ren's idea. At this time, it was of utmost importance to have someone to speak up for him. It was clearly a cold snort. It's been 10,000 years. Feel that there was a gorgeous and blazing feeling in the voice. Return to the Dragonbone waste because of Neltharion who betrayed the entire dragon race and went against our eternal mission. And the remains of the other blue dragons back. Even if you become a Dragonbone waste was equivalent to the ancestral graves you will continue to harm this world. The ancestral graves were guarded by guardians. Neserio's remnant soul still ignored her. Alright, you're right. So what now if you and I are even? I'm not convinced. With that, even if I fall into the deepest depths of light into Duque's arms, take revenge on you hypocrites in my own way. Congratulations, host. That's right. You have obtained the fire of breaking dawn. As long as I get your egg, I can create more sealed when your strength is sufficient. I can use my evil art to purify this world that has been occupied by the inferior races. Any obstacles in stepping into the breaking dawn momentarily speechless. Duque was smashed by this sudden huge meat pie. But his soul was in a state of blissful stupor and felt dizzy. One of the important reasons why this dragon ceremony was held was to vent her anger and correct the views of the dragons and their descendants was no longer reliable. Now that Neserio was so stubborn even though he was dead and only half of his soul was left, she could certainly destroy this extraordinary power dragon king just like that. But now in that case, the effect of preaching would be greatly reduced. Didn't have a good impression of Malygos suddenly said,
hold
now,
the ceremony.
Even if this old blue
I've
dragon was a male,
for 7 days
Duque
and
had
7
the urge
nights
to kiss him
but
a few
he has
times.
no regrets.
Suddenly,
Duque's
entire
body
I
was
have
turned
no
around.
objections. The first thing that came into
Alexstrasza
view was that
wasn't willing.
beautiful face,
The
with a
traitor
hint
that she
of
had
slyness.
fought against for
No
10,000
need
years
to
was
thank
finally
him.
brought to justice.
Just thank me.
But this guy
The
still
red dragon
looked like
queen
a spiritual
puffed out the
warrior
pair
of
even in
giant
death.
cats in front of her
How
chest
could she vent
and
her
then
anger
made a
like
proud
this?
expression.
How could the
Damn, I
millions
was
of
quite
dragon
touched just
descendants
now.
vent their
Now
anger?
I don't feel anything.
Was this the result
Duque
of
was
fighting
also
against the black
speechless
dragon
towards this
army
ancient
for
female
10,000
dragon
years
who made him feel angry and
Absolutely
funny
not.
at the same time.
At this time,
She also
the red
didn't
dragon
seem to
queen
understand the
suddenly
ways of
thought
the world.
Duque.
Yes,
Are
that
you trying
kid
to
has
say
the
that the debt
ideas.
between us is
Duque
also
was
settled?
speechless when the red
Duque
dragon
touched
queen
his
suddenly
nose.
sent him a
Alexstrasza
telepathic
displayed
message.
her proud queen's demeanor.
Duque,
She
if you can
elegantly
help make
pressed
that
her
mad
right hand
dragon
on her
confess
sexy
or make a
collarbone
fool
and
of
raised
himself,
her chin
I'll
slightly.
owe you another
Her
big
golden
favor.
vertical pupils
It's a
flashed
deal.
with pride. Seeing that
How
Duque
is that
agreed
possible?
so readily,
Saving my dragon
Alexstrasza
egg,
really
freeing
regretted
me
it
from
a
my
little.
painful
Did she
captivity.
promise too
How
easily?
can the insignificant
However, there were
of
so many
stars and
dragon
moon
descendants
and
watching.
breaking
If
dawn
she
fire,
destroyed Nesario's
compare.
soul
Don't
just
tell
like
me that someone
there
as
might be
powerful
more
as me
betrayals
is
in the
worth
future.
the same as
The
a
queen
mere
gritted
human
her
breaking
teeth
dawn
and
wizard.
accepted it.
All right,
Duque
what you said
said
makes
slowly,
sense. I don't mind if you
Nesario,
continue
I
to owe
can't
me a
help
favor.
but pity you.
Duque rolled his
Nesario's
eyes and
remnant
shrugged.
soul laughed out loud. Pity me? After nagging
I'm
the
the
queen
supreme
for a
one.
while,
Why
Duque
should I
began
let
to
you
calm
pity me?
down and carefully feel the surging mana
Duque
that had
shook
risen
his
to the
head and
next
said,
level.
"Because you
later,
don't have
a
anything."
piece of news shocked
Even the
entire
idea of
Lord
purifying the
The
world and
17-year-old
becoming the
Duke
only
Marcus had
master of
suddenly become
Azeroth
a
was
radiant
brainwashed
moon
by
by
the
the ancient god.
The moment
Enza.
Duque
stepped out
You're
of the
just a
portal,
pitiful
all
wretch
the
who
high
doesn't
ranked
even have
wizards in
self-will.
Lordaeron sensed it. Nesario
Morning
cursed,
stars,
as the name suggested, were the
You
radiance
still don't
of their
want to
power.
admit it?
In the
That's
eyes
the
of
effect
others,
of the
they were
whispers of the
just the
ancient
light
gods.
of the stars.
Nesario
Even
insisted,
though they had the
"There's
ability to
absolutely
generate
no
mana,
such thing.
it was extremely
Well,
limited.
as long as you're willing to do a
Radiant Moon
small
was a
experiment
completely
in front
different
of everyone,
concept. As long
Not
as
to
you
mention the
successfully
quality,
passed this
just the
experiment,
quantity alone
I'll let you
was
go.
more than 100
Duque
levels
said,
higher than a
the
morning
other
star.
two dragon
On a
kings were
cloudless
indignant.
night, one
If they
could
could
really
ignore the
let
stars in the
Nesario
sky,
run out and
but
turn into a
definitely not
zombie
the moon
dragon
that hung
he
high
would
in the
definitely
sky.
be a super
This was
disaster.
especially so
For
when
a
the
moment,
radiant moon
they wanted
great
to
wizard
object.
who was protecting
However,
Tyreena's
the
told him
approval
about
of
the
the two
two
female
female
dragon
dragon kings.
he was
suddenly
stunned for a
came
long
from the
time.
sky. Because
Leave
be
it
it
to Duque.
humans, dwarves,
Okay.
or high elves,
Nesario
any
agreed.
radiant moon wizard
The
would be
experiment is
respectfully
very
addressed
simple.
as
Great
as long
wizard.
as you repeat the sentence, "I don't have a brain," 1,000 times, then I'll ask you a question.
Chapter
If you can answer it
641.
correctly, you'll
A
pass.
17-year-old
So,
archmage.
I don't have a brain.
Any mage who reached
I don't
the
have a brain.
archmage level would
I don't have a
definitely
brain.
become an
The
honored
entire
guest of
temple
any kingdom.
echoed with Nesario's
He became a great
brainwashing
wizard
voice.
at the age of
The
17,
moment he repeated
and
it
he was the
1,000
only
times,
one in the past
Duque
1,000
suddenly
years
shouted,
apart from Medivh.
Nesario,
Countless
do you
people
have a
were
brain?
so shocked that they lost
Nesario
their ability
replied
to
without
speak.
hesitation,
Isn't this
I
too
don't have a
ridiculous?
King Salas
Thousands of
Trollbane
giant
was
dragons
silent for a
spat
long
out
time.
dragon breath.
Ha. If Duque is willing to admit that he's a dwarf, I'll definitely give him an honorary warrior medal from Iron Furnace Castle. Magni Bronzebeard laughed loudly. We dwarves don't have mages, and Duque isn't a warrior, Muradin Bronzebeard mocked his elder brother. Why isn't he a dwarf? Jerbin said regretfully. Of course, the happiest was still Stormwind. Lang received the news. He knew very well that Stormwind was in the process of restoring its kingdom. The ministers of internal affairs obviously wanted to break a copper coin in half, but they still announced on the spot that Stormwind would hold a large banquet to celebrate Duque's promotion. Lang and Daylin had been discussing bilateral trade, but the two kings couldn't wait for Duque to return from the teleportation array and came together to welcome Duque. Halfway between the venue and the teleportation array, they met Duque, who was already surrounded by the Windrunner sisters. Duque. Lang was overjoyed. Weren't you going to the Dragon's Slumber Temple's ceremony? Why did you suddenly promote? I'm curious too, Daylin said. Duque sighed. Sigh. The Blue Dragon King Maligos is very grateful that I helped him avenge his wife's death. He dragged me along and insisted on teaching me some magic experience. Since the King of Magic is so kind, I can't refuse. I accidentally leveled up. On Duque's right, Aurelia had a hard time holding it in, but she was a sensible woman and barely held back her laughter. On the left, Sasha couldn't hold it in. She covered her mouth secretly because she was afraid that she would accidentally laugh and cause internal injuries. 2 minutes ago, Duque had just told them that he had shamelessly asked Maligos to return the favor, and then something had happened. Alexstrasza had protected him with her life,
which was why he had been promoted with the help of the two dragon kings. Now that he was in front of the two kings, how did it become the proud blue dragon king who was kneeling down and licking his boots to promote him? Sasha was not someone who was good at hiding her emotions. Aurelia also had her flaws, but King Dalin did not care. What Dai Lin cared about was the fact that Duque had advanced. Duke Marcus's rise to power was legendary in the entire alliance and even the entire human world. In this legend, the only fly in the ointment was Duque's personal strength. Although Duque also had the battle record of killing a sword sage, his combat power was obviously lower than that of Uther, Anduin, and Antonidas. Now, Duque's last shortcoming was made up for. What was presented in front of Dai Lin was the perfect Duque. Dai Lin was complimenting him, but no one knew what he was thinking. On the other side, Anduin had also rushed over. He had been attending another meeting, and had galloped here with Mograine. Without saying anything, he went up and gave Lin Li a bear hug. Ahem! I'm going to die. Let go. You orc in human skin, Duque cursed. Ha! Laughter was heard everywhere. It was a joy to be able to bully a newly advanced archmage. Lang was gratified. Duque's timely promotion had given him hope of reviving the Storm Royal mages. Many of the mages that Duque had won over with the Karazhan library had secretly complained that Duque did not have enough time to guide them. There were also some who saw that Duque's level was not high and had other thoughts. All of this was solved with Duque's promotion. Not every mage apprentice or low-level mage could receive guidance from Antonidas, let alone the Sun King Anastrian, who would not teach outsiders. Being able to receive guidance from a Radiant Moon Archmage was the ultimate goal of most mage apprentices with potential. He had thought that Stormwind would not be able to recover in the field of mystery after losing Medivh, but now it seemed that was not the case. As long as Duque could become a Breaking Dawn mage before the age of 30, no, 50, then Stormwind's position in the field of mystery would be as solid as a rock. Unfortunately, Duque had told Lang that Karazhan was a little unstable. Otherwise, Lang would be willing to celebrate for 3 to 5 days. However, this did not affect the banquet tonight. The second day of the third year of the Dark Portal. The New Year's banquet had just been held last night. Most of the nobles did not expect that there would be another grand banquet soon. A grand banquet usually required a lot of preparation, but since the 25th of December, there would be banquets almost every day. As long as one could afford it, it was as luxurious as one could ask for. Standing at the entrance of the banquet hall of the Stormwind State Guesthouse, King Lang, Anduin, and the protagonist of the night, Duque, received the blessings of every guest. Congratulations! Your Excellency Marcus! No one expected Prince Arthas to come from Rotterdam. Today, Arthas was dressed splendidly. The black evening gown custom-made by the royal tailor was perfect for him. Although Arthas was only 13 years old, his outstanding genes made him not only tall, but also had the potential to be a handsome guy. Thank you, Your Highness, Duque replied respectfully. Actually, I am not much younger than Your Excellency. If possible, I would still like to call you Brother Duque. You can call me by my name as well. Arthas's face was as handsome as a spring breeze, and it was difficult for anyone to resist her enthusiasm. All right then. Welcome, Arthas. The King Duque secretly channeled mana into his arms. At this moment, Duque was like an ogre. He gave Arthas a bear hug and made it hard for him to breathe. The 13-year-old had not developed well yet, and Arthas was defeated immediately. Everyone said that Duque was weak, but it did not seem like it. Arthas, who had been crushed by Duque's strength, finally managed to catch his breath. His face was red. Sorry, my father is not feeling well today. He asked me to come and congratulate you on his behalf, Duque. Not feeling well? Was Tarina's feeling stifled? The leaders of the various kingdoms who heard this snickered. One by one, the nobles came to congratulate Duque. Other than Kuel, Salus, and Gilnis who had left the alliance, all the leaders of the kingdoms came. The only unexpected guest was Krasus, who came with Ronan. After some small talk, Krasus said, Duque, why don't you come and be Ronan's teacher? Chapter 642. Duque was shocked. To be Ronin's teacher? That didn't seem right. Although there was no seniority in learning, as long as you were of a lower level than the other party, regardless of whether you were 80 years old or 100 years old, you had to call someone senior, but a 17-year-old young man with a 20-year-old disciple, that's seen, not to mention that was Ronin. The famous example of a loser's counterattack in history, Ronin, who had no background but was almost at the level of a mage. If he took Ronin as his disciple, he felt that his moral integrity would be greatly reduced. Well, even Duque himself did not believe that he was a person of moral integrity for a long time. Duque told himself in his heart, I even saved Lothar, what difference does it make if I take Ronin as my disciple? However, he still had to put on an act. Duque said sincerely, Ronin, after all, I have gone through life and death with you. Personally, I quite admire you. Perhaps I have enough achievements to boast to anyone, but my age is right there, and I may not be more knowledgeable than you. Do you really want to be my disciple? Ronin looked a little embarrassed. Duque was right, but so what? Duque's resume blinded all the mages. A 17-year-old radiant moon mage. Killed the Burning Legion's boss, Sardrus. Saved hundreds of thousands of Stormwind citizens. Transported 50,000 elite soldiers on an ice ship in one night. Became the Alliance's deputy commander at the age of 16, led the army to conquer the entire Lordaeron continent, and killed millions of orcs. Killed the Sacred Swordsman chief, destroyed a warlock. Saved the Red Dragon Queen, killed Nethario. Even though he had gone on adventures with Duque, Ronin knew very well that the one standing in front of him was a living legend of the Alliance. He put one hand on his chest and bowed. No, Lord Marcus is too humble. Your courage is no less than Wuther the Lightbringer who charged against 200,000 orcs with 12 riders. Your wisdom is enough to light up the entire Azeroth's starry sky. I, Ronin, sincerely hope to worship Lord Marcus as my master, to learn how to be a person, to learn wisdom, and to learn the mysteries of magic. These words were definitely not thought up by Ronin himself. If Luo Ning was this good with words, he wouldn't have offended so many people in the first place. Duque shifted his gaze to Krasus's face. The human-shaped red dragon couldn't help but blush. Damn you! He was just short of whistling and pretending to be innocent. Luo Ning panicked and tried to explain, No. Lord Marcus, don't blame Lord Krasus. I was afraid that I would say something wrong, so I asked him for advice. This time, it was Krasus' turn to laugh. Don't underestimate our great hero, Duque. If he was such a petty person, no matter how great his achievements were, he wouldn't have been recognized by so many kings. In the direction Krasus was pointing. Sure enough, Luo Ning saw the officials of the 9 great kingdoms chatting merrily and wittily. This was a private banquet, but the dignitaries of various countries had come. What was their purpose? This had long since surpassed simple benefits, it was more of a recognition of Duke Marcus. At this moment, Luo Ning's eyes were filled with indescribable envy. This expression lasted for 2 seconds, and then he turned around and bowed deeply towards Duque. I ask Lord Marcus to accept me as a disciple. I might not be able to become a great hero like you, but I still hope that one day, I can become a great arcana master on par with Lord Marcus. Good. I agree. However, calling him Lord Marcus was too distant. You can call me Teacher Duque in the future. Understood, Teacher Duque. Seeing the super awesome person whose name would go down in history actually take him as his master, Duque felt his bones go numb, even his footsteps were a bit light. After Luo Ning left, Aurelia, dressed in evening clothes, couldn't help but ridicule Duque. Hey, Duque, is taking Luo Ning as a disciple really something to be happy about? Wintessa also came over. Yes. I feel that he's a bit special in arcane magic, but not necessarily outstanding. Don't true geniuses have already shown their talents long ago? No. Duque pretended to shake the index finger of his right hand mysteriously. Rather than doubt, you should believe in my foresight. Speaking of foresight, the Windrunner sisters put their hands on their hips. On this point they really had to admire Duque. He really made a mistake when using people. Even bringing Marion when saving the Red Dragon Queen could not be said to be a mistake, because judging from how Duque had backfired on Nesario, perhaps Duque had predicted this from the beginning. Duque did not know if he could train Luo Ning well. After all, in the original history, there were 3 great pharaoh of the younger generation: Khadgar, Luo Ning, and Jaina. One became a ghost, one seemed to have been robbed of his role by someone and became a bit unknown, and the last one was still a lowly who had not yet expired. Duque silently muttered in his heart, "This is the world's fault." After the Second World War at the Dark Portal, Duque still felt that the world did not seem to have changed as much as he had imagined. However, with this abominable transmigrator stirring up trouble, things seemed to be developing in a strange direction. On the other side, Dai Lin and Lang seemed to be talking about something, and then Andoin also went over to join in. Looking at the 3 guys who were beaming with joy, Duque suddenly had a feeling that these 3 guys were going to cause trouble. Suddenly shivering, Duque had an ominous premonition in his heart. Sure enough, in the next second, 3 burly animals came together. Duque pulled Luo Ning over as a shield. "Yo, why are the 3 of you here together?" "Just in time, let me introduce you, this is my new disciple, Luo Ning. He is extremely talented in arcane magic." Seeing the 3 nobles at the same time, Luo Ning was a little confused. Only when Duque secretly kicked him did Luo Ning come to his senses. "Your Majesty Proudmoore, Your Majesty Rin, Commander Lothar, greetings." "Ah, disciple. It's okay, I believe in your judgment." Lothar's loud voice was the first to congratulate him. But for some reason, Duque always felt that Lang's gaze seemed to be telling him, "Duque, you brought this upon yourself? Did I do something wrong? Duque, you've started to accept disciples?" Dailin's eyes were playful. Can't I? At least I can be respectfully addressed as the Great Mage," Duque replied with his hands on his waist. No, I very much recognize your strength. Since you've already accepted a disciple, why don't you also accept a genius in frost magic?" "Who?" As soon as he asked, Duque felt a little regretful. He already knew the answer. "Yo, Jaina, come here for a while." Dailin called out to his daughter. Duque clenched his teeth, looking as if he had a toothache. The next moment, Duque saw a golden-haired lowly in a blue dress with white edges walking over quickly. Chapter 643. Jaina Proudmoore. She was the famous girl who sold her father. Now, she was still a lowly who had not yet expired. When Duque saw Jaina again, he was shocked. The 13-year-old Jaina was already beautiful beyond the mortal world. After not seeing her for more than a year, the girl's puberty was obvious. She had inherited her mother's beauty. The influence of puberty had affected her, and the curve of her but had become beautiful. Her chest, which used to be exquisite, had now become seductive. The unripe fruit had also begun to grow into a ripe peach. "Congratulations, Master Duque." Seeing Jaina give him a well-behaved lady's bow, Duke's mind was in a trance. His eyes were seeing things and his ears were hearing things. Jaina tilted her head and said to Duque, "Brother, although I don't mind, according to the law, if you push me down, you will be sentenced to at least 3 years in prison, and the highest is life." In the spiritual world, Duque's nose started to bleed, and he replied in a domineering manner, 3 years of hard work. Life is not a loss." The little lowly Jaina's face suddenly turned pale. The scene returned to reality. Duke looked at Jaina with a dignified and calm gaze. She did not have many complicated thoughts, and she had the purity of Princess Kalia, as well as a pair of eyes that Kalia did not have. The biggest difference was in those sapphire eyes. If Kalia was a canary in a cage that King Tarinas had carefully nurtured, she would not be able to escape. In that case, Jaina was a polar ice phoenix who was ready to set her dreams free at any time. Noble, beautiful, but with a faint sense of danger. A very magical sense of excitement was stimulating Duque's senses. And Dalin's next words made Duque feel a strange excitement in his heart reach its peak. "Duque, there is a big gap between our ages, and after going through life and death together, I have long regarded you as my little brother. My daughter is not like me, she cannot be the daughter of the sea. But I don't want to waste her unparalleled magic talent, so I want to entrust her to you." Duque tried to suppress the strange feeling in his heart. "I remember that Her Highness Jaina worships His Excellency the most. But Lord Antonidas is busy. I've asked him a few times, but he always brushed me off." Dalen shrugged. "I'm busy too. Karazhan will be attacked by demons soon. Even if I do, I still have to rebuild Stormwind," Duque said shamelessly. Suddenly, Antonidas came over. "Are you trying to say that you have less energy than an old man like me? You bastard, did you guys discuss this beforehand?" Duque seemed to want to refuse. "I'm sorry. Dalen, Gianna is too beautiful. What if I can't control myself?" Before Duque could finish, Dai Lin had already put his arm around Duque's shoulder. "It's all right. Just remember to pay for your ticket after boarding the ship. I'm not picky when it comes to betrothal gifts. Just give me a deepwater port as a betrothal gift." "Father," Jaina was so embarrassed that she stomped her feet anxiously. Although she'd heard that her father wanted to betroth her to Duque, it was still embarrassing for a noble princess to say it in public. "Dear, I'm just saying." Dai Lin comforted his daughter casually. Duque couldn't stay calm anymore. "Damn you. Are you trying to test my moral integrity? Aren't you afraid that I won't pay for my ticket after boarding the ship?" "No. First, I believe that you're not that kind of person. Second, if you are, I'll declare war on Stormwind. Even if all the men in the country die, I'll kill you." When Dai Lin said this, Duque's face turned green. T. He might even become the son-in-law of the proud Moore family. If he taught her well, there would be no benefit at all. Only a ghost would do that. "Please forgive me for firmly rejecting you," Duque said firmly. "Don't be in such a hurry to reject me." At this time, Lang and Andoin came up. Andoin put his hand on Duque's shoulder and showed him a contract made of craft paper. It was a 10-year economic and trade contract between Stormwind and the Kingdom of Kurtiras. From trade to supplies, to arms supply, to maritime cooperation. It was almost a comprehensive cooperation between the two countries. Duque roughly looked at it. Stormwind could earn at least 2 million gold coins every year, and that was only for the first year. In other words, the contract was estimated to be worth more than 20 million gold coins. Obviously, this was a cooperation that Stormwind couldn't refuse. "Lang, you're selling me off for a mere 20 million? Duque was devastated. You can't put it that way. Princess Jaina will return to Kul Tiras after studying under you until she's 20, or if she reaches the Radiant Moon rank early, or if you marry another noble," Leon said, a little embarrassed. Duque vomited 3 liters of blood. The other party wasn't trying to force it onto them unreasonably. Teaching someone's daughter would earn him 20 million gold coins in net profit. Although it would be split for 10 years, Duque knew very well that the southern continent's Iron Furnace Fort and Stormwind City would have nothing to do with the third battle of the Dark Portal. As long as they survived the wave of Nuzul, Stormwind would welcome a 10-year development period. Moreover, becoming enemies with Kurtiras would not benefit Stormwind at all. Before the underground train tunnel was opened to the Iron Furnace Fort, Stormwind's only way to communicate with the outside world was through the sea. There was no need to go north through the burning steppes. The Black Iron Dwarves who opposed the Bronzebeard Dwarves were at the bottom of the Black Rock Mountain. Going there for trade would be suicide. Duque looked at Lang and Andoin, then at Dalen and Antonidas. These old foxes all had an invisible devil's tail on their buttocks, wagging it as they snickered. "Lang, Andoin, is there really no room for discussion?" Duquest. The two bastards shook their heads like a rattledrum. Duque's bird of despair. "Father, didn't we agree that it's only an apprenticeship?" Jane asked. "It's an apprenticeship," Dalen replied. "It's just a precaution, so I said it first." Jaina was also a bird of despair. Just like that, the bitter Jaina walked in front of Duque. "Jaina Proudmoore requests Master Duke Marcus to accept me as a disciple and guide me on the path of arcane magic." "Alright." Duque said helplessly. From today onwards, you are my disciple, Duque. Come, greet Luoning. He entered the sect earlier than you, so he's your big brother. Greetings, senior brother Ronan. Greetings, junior sister Jaina. Ronan was older, so Jaina's greeting was not out of place. At this time, Dalin suddenly said, Duque, I know my daughter is a little smart and has all kinds of ideas. I'm afraid you won't be able to control her. How about this, I'll give you my sword. I, Dalin, hereby swear in the name of Proudmoore that I will give Duke Marcus the right to discipline my daughter Jaina. If Jaina does anything that goes against the rules of humanity, Master Duque can use this sword to punish Jaina. I, Dalin, will not object. Chapter 644. Duque was dumbfounded. The leaders of the alliance were dumbfounded. This was an era where nobles controlled society. It was also an era where the spirit of chivalry was important. If a knight felt that his apprentice had violated the spirit of chivalry, he could speak up and kill the apprentice without taking any responsibility. The people around would instead praise the knight for putting his own family before justice. However, this rarely happened among nobles, let alone among the royal family. The kings present were all smart people. They quickly understood why Dalin did this. After all, Dalin had put in a lot of effort. Originally, the most ideal successor of Kultiras was the eldest prince, Drake. Drake was an excellent successor who had received Dalin's teachings. Be it in martial arts, style, or courage, he was a model among the princes. Drake, who had been independent since a long time ago, was comparable to his father in terms of leadership. However, Drake had died under the dragon breath of the ancient red dragon, Tyrannistus. That was why Dalin had gone on a rampage. Duque had asked for justice for him. Dalin was extremely grateful to Duque. After the grief, Dalin had to face reality. He had to choose a new successor. He only had 2 legitimate children, his second son, Tandred, and his daughter, Jaina. No one would care if a noble had 10,000 illegitimate children, but the only legitimate successor recognized by other nobles was the child of a noble lady of the same bloodline. Unless these 2 children also died, it would not be his illegitimate daughter's turn to stand up for him. Since Thoradin the Great, there had never been a female queen in the human kingdom. Dalin knew that his second son, Tandred, was only a mediocre person, while Jaina was extremely talented, both in terms of magic and intelligence. Jaina was still relatively naive now. He was afraid that there would be opponents in the future. If he left Jaina in the country, Tandred would definitely not be Jaina's match if someone ignited Jaina's ambition. Since Thoradin the Great's era, the princesses of the Eastern Kingdom were notoriously hard to find a husband. If they wanted to marry, they had to at least have a noble status. They were either princes or at least dukes. This also depended on whether it could bring enough benefits to the country and whether the other country's king would agree. Just like Princess Kalia of Rotterdam, Tarinas had his eyes on Duque at first, but unfortunately he met Lord Presto, who was disguised as Deathwing. If Kalia had not faked her death, according to Tarinas' personality, it would not be surprising if Kalia was left alone in the palace for the rest of her life. It wasn't something that could be done casually. It wouldn't do if the nobles were too low in status, but if the nobles were too high in status, they would be afraid that the nobles would use their power to bully them. Any duke who marries a princess becomes a prince in the truest sense of the word. If something were to happen to the official heir, it would be a loss of royal authority. This kind of thing happened too many times since ancient times. Before the war, Dalin didn't really mind Jaina and Prince Arthas of Lordaeron getting closer. Being the queen of Lordaeron didn't seem to be a bad thing. The battle at the Dark Portal changed everything. Lordaeron's reputation was tarnished. Tarinas putting Nisario in an important position could still be justified, but Tarinas and the entire upper class of Lordaeron's attempt to annex Alterac was real. Without this, there would be no such thing as making Presto the king. Tarinas was willing to use Neltharion. Who knew if he would kill then Reed after Arthas married Jaina? If that was the case, Lordaeron could legitimately annex Kul Tiras. So Dalin completely changed his mind. He didn't even want to put Jaina in the Dalagen, which was so close to Lordaeron. If Arthas really wanted to see Jaina, he could just take a boat across Lordaeron Mill Lake. But if he put Jaina in Karazhan, which was in the hinterland of Stormwind, that would be a different story. Dalen didn't believe that Tyreenas would let Arthas cross more than 2,000 kilometers, or use something as dangerous as a portal to meet Jaina. If he really did come, wouldn't there be Duque to block the way? Now that Duque had accepted Jaina as his disciple, it was like the fish had taken the bait. Dalen knew his daughter's charm very well. She was only 12 years old, but she had already charmed all the male Dalagen mages. Now, she was even more beautiful. From today onwards, she was going to live under the same roof as Duque for 7 years. Dalen didn't believe that nothing would happen. Dalen was also an experienced playboy when he was young. He could tell at a glance that Aurelia and Sasha, who were always by Duque's side, had already fallen for him. It wasn't just the Windrunner sisters. The little girl from the Barra family was also deeply in love even though she was still a virgin. Dalen was very smart, but he would never know that Duque was a transmigrator. He was extremely wary of his precious daughter. Fire, theft, and betrayal. Duque was really afraid. He was afraid that he would be cursed to death if he wasn't careful. Dalen had his own wishful thinking. Duque also had his own black-bellied plan. In just 2 minutes, a set of the real black-bellied lowly training plan had been born in Duque's mind. However, Duque, who was possessed by the best actor, didn't let anyone notice anything amiss. Everyone. While we're celebrating Duque's promotion to a Radiant Moon Archmage, I'd like to announce a piece of good news. My daughter, Jaina, is going to be Duque's disciple. She's going to learn the secrets of magic from Duque. Dalen struck while the iron was hot and announced it publicly. This instantly ignited the enthusiasm of the big shots in the alliance. Congratulations! This was the blessing of the neutral King Salas. Wow! Are you sure it's her teacher and not her husband? This was the ridicule of the dwarf King Magni. That's right, that's right. This was the cheering of the crowd, Kudrin. Oh. Duque, don't misguide the magic genius Jaina. In my opinion, Jaina's talent is astonishing. She'll at least become a Radiant Moon Archmage in the future. The old fool Antonidas teased. Duque, as a teacher, shouldn't you give your disciple a presentable gift? Jerbin, you damned shortest of them all. I'll remember you. With so many kings jeering and nobles watching, if Duque didn't take out something good, how would he be able to mingle in the alliance's upper echelons? Duque didn't hesitate either. Greetings, Teacher Marcus. When Ronan knelt on one knee and Jaina kowtowed, Duque took out 2 pieces of magic equipment. Ronan was an accessory, while Jaina was a pair of gloves. Dalen elbowed Antonidas. How about it? Does Duque mistreat my daughter? Antonidas' eyes bulged, and after a long time he said, Duque, let's make a deal. Can you exchange these 2 items for me? Chapter 645. Wow! Under the cheers of the 3 dwarf kings, the leaders of the alliance and even the surrounding nobles let out a second wave of exclamations. Who was Antonidas? He was one of the 2 Breaking Dawn great wizards in the current known kingdom. After Kuel Salas left the alliance, he became the leader of the alliance's occult domain. The things that Duque had given to his 2 disciples actually made even Antonidas jealous. How precious were they? After hearing Antonidas's evaluation, even Jaina, who was used to seeing big things, was so shocked that her mouth opened in an O shape. She almost spat out her tongue. She was a country bumpkin who had never seen an exquisite equipment before. At first, Dalen was afraid that Duque would be too stingy. After all, his daughter had been forced onto him, and Duque was not too willing to accept it. Dalen really wanted to see if Duque valued his daughter from the gifts that her master had given her. Now that he knew that Duque had given him something priceless, Dalen started to complain about Antonidas. Oh, Antonidas, you're not being kind. That's a gift from Duque to me, and you still have the cheek to ask for it? Old Antonidas blushed, and then said bitterly and aggrievedly, Please, it's not just me. Even those arrogant elven wizards, No, even if Anastrian was here, he would want it too. Because those two are Wings of Death's treasures. Oh my god. And they're even family heirlooms. As the authoritative pharaoh finished speaking, the noise in the banquet hall suddenly rose by more than one level. It was like a raging wave. The exclamations of the leaders of the alliance and the nobles even alerted the guards outside the door. A few paladins rushed into the banquet hall with the royal guards, and only retreated awkwardly when they saw that nothing was wrong. Wings of Death, Nisario's treasures? Dooku was really willing to part with it. When Jaina first received the pair of gloves, she instinctively felt that this pair of magic gloves was extraordinary. Jaina fell in love with the dark red background and mysterious purple-blue patterns at first glance. The moment she put it on, she felt that her magic circuits had at least doubled. Not only the capacity, but even the flow of mana had been greatly increased. Jaina could clearly feel that this was only a very, very small portion of the glove's power. Furthermore, there was a faint dragon's breath lingering around her fingers. This was not the corrosive dragon breath of the Wings of Death. This was the frost dragon breath that had been carefully purified and modified by some almighty being. For Jaina, who was only an earth mage, it was an unimaginable treasure. If that was the case, it wouldn't be considered a treasure of the Wings of Death. What shocked Jaina the most were the words, family heirloom. That's right. This pair of gloves was precious because it was a family heirloom. In other words, it did not limit the magic level of the user. Even the lowest level magic apprentice could wear it. Mages with a family heirloom would cultivate faster, and there was no need to worry about collecting the best magic equipment in the process of cultivation. This was because the attributes of the family heirloom would automatically unlock the seal layer by layer as the owner's magic level improved. Moreover, because the level of the heirloom itself was very high, there was no need to consider eliminating it before the owner reached the level that the equipment should have. Not to mention, it was an epic equipment that even Antonidas was jealous of. Originally, Jaina was dissatisfied with her father's unreasonable giving of a sword to Duque, allowing Duque to control her life and death after she violated the ban. However, in the face of Duque's precious super gift, Jaina's young heart fell a little. So Brother Duque? Oh, Teacher Duque still likes me very much. That sword is more of a formality. I won't violate the ban, so Teacher won't use that sword to punish me. Jaina's pretty face was red from excitement. She raised her sharp chin and looked up at Duque's gentle and kind face. Teacher, what's the name of this pair of gloves? Duque said kindly, this pair of gloves has a very nice name. It's called Misty Gloves. Blooming like fireworks and flowing like water? So nice. Thank you, teacher. I really like this pair of gloves. In order to express her excitement, Jaina used a total of 3 tens to describe her excitement. A certain someone laughed sinisterly in his heart. That's right. Misty, if you dare to mess around in the future, I'll light you up like a cigarette. On the other side, Ronan was so excited that he was about to cry. In this life, Ronan did not have the merit of being the main force that saved the Red Dragon Queen. Even though he did not kill any of his teammates this time, he was still not well received in the Dalajan. His days were miserable. Originally, Ronan had become Duque's disciple under Krasis' suggestion, but he never thought that Duque would really take him in. He was already overjoyed that Duque had taken him in. Who would have thought that Duque would be so rich as to take out 2 rare treasures from the Wings of Death as gifts? Looking at the accessory that looked like half a small stone slab in his hands, Ronan was speechless for a long time. Even a magician's apprentice could feel the unparalleled power contained within it, as well as the mysterious mana amplification. This was not just a simple mana amplification. Ronan could feel that when he started casting spells, the accessory would give him more than just a single level of amplification. It might even give him 2 or 3 levels of amplification. This was a peerless treasure that any magician could only dream of. Teacher Duque actually gave such an amazing item away just like that. Just how much does Teacher think of me? Tears were already welling up in Ronan's eyes. Teacher, thank you. Unable to express his excitement with words, Ronan ran in front of Duque and kowtowed heavily. In this era, only the lowliest citizens would have to kowtow like this when they saw their leader. Even if Duque was a teacher, it was still a bit exaggerated. But everyone could understand. Behind King Daelin, Daelin's old lover and personal bodyguard, Gina Goldsword, did not hide her envy. She whispered into Daelin's ear, "I'm so jealous of Gina. If someone gave me this before I met you, I would sleep with them for the rest of my life, not to mention kowtowing." Daelin knew that his old lover was joking, but he was still deeply touched. Duque helped Ronan up. "Get up. This accessory of yours is called Unruly Will. Just like Gina's, it's a rare treasure." Duque lied with a straight face. Chapter 646. An accessory that could temporarily increase intelligence every time a damaging spell was cast for 10 seconds and could stack up to 10 times. Even if it seemed to be the same level as the glove next door, could its actual combat effect be the same? In the game, players would pray every week to open 3 of these items at once, and it was best to wear 2 at the same time. Would it be an ordinary item? Not to mention Ronan and Jaina, even Antonidas had never seen Unruly Will before. Only those who had used it knew that this was a divine item that mages of the same level could only dream of. Especially for a mage like Ronan, who had a high-explosive hairstyle, it was like adding wings to a tiger. Anyone who touched this thing would be killed. Think about it, the guy opposite him had been holding his breath until his face was red, and he had held his breath to fire a 0.38 caliber pistol bullet. Who would have thought that the next moment, it would be a 0.5 caliber sniper rifle bullet, and the next moment, it would be a howitzer? Every time a spell was cast, the damage could be stacked, and the damage could be stacked 10 times in one go. Behind Duque's seemingly fair appearance, he was a classic case of favoritism. It wasn't just any ordinary favoritism, but a direct one. 9, the kind of favoritism that could tip the scales. Everyone only knew that they were all from Nisario, but who knew that there were subdivided production versions of the same boss, ordinary version and elite version? Jaina's smoke glove was the production version, and Ronan's was the elite version. The Unruly Will of the same level, and Duque had another one on his waist. Duque didn't know why there were 2 identical Unruly Will on Deathwing. After he tried to wear both at the same time and failed, he simply did it as a favor. Anyway, it was definitely not a loss to give it to Ronan. Cuff cuff. Seeing Ronan kneel to him so sincerely, even the thick-skinned Duque felt a little hot. Thinking about it, Duque felt a little relieved. Not to mention anything else, even if he was biased, so what? Not every talented mage could have an heirloom, modified from Deathwing's exquisite equipment. One had to know that the modifier was the Red Dragon Queen, Life Giver Alexstrasza. And this was just something that a certain queen casually did. Although that fellow kept saying that there would be a heavy reward, Duque didn't even see what the hell the so-called heavy reward was until he left the Dragon Sleep Temple. Duque wasn't in a hurry. As long as his relationship with Alexstrasza and the Crimson Dragon Legion was solid enough, it would be fine. At this moment, everyone present applauded. Magni said carelessly, "All right. Even I, the king, am envious. The 2 of you are so lucky to have such a generous teacher." Krasus smiled at Ronan. "Congratulations, Ronan." "Yes, thank you." Ronan started crying. Daelin was both happy and a little jealous. Although he had pushed Jaina away for the stability and continuity of the kingdom, she was still his daughter. Seeing how well Duque treated her, Daelin felt a little sad. "Remember to listen to Teacher Duque." "Yes, father," Jaina replied softly. She then lowered her head and stared blankly at the magnificent and powerful pair of gloves. The banquet ended with a round of well wishes. From today onwards, Ronan and Jaina would follow Duque. Ronan had nothing to worry about, so he directly followed Duque to the state guest house in Stormwind. Jaina was a little more troublesome. She still had to move things from Dalajan to Karazhan, and she would meet up with Duque later. It was late at night. When Duque returned to his room, he was surprised to find that Elugia was helping him prepare the bed. This kind of thing can be left to the maids. Duque was a little embarrassed. I don't feel safe leaving it to the maids of Lordaeron. This used to be done by Vanessa. She's not here, and I have nothing to do anyway, so I might as well do it. Elugia, who hadn't even changed out of her evening gown, rushed over and carefully made the bed. Duque felt a strange sense of warmth in his heart. That's enough. The bed will be messy again in a while. Duque was speaking the truth. As a college pervert, as an evil person who didn't make his bed, he really didn't understand the meaning of making his bed. So, for a long time, his bed was a dog's kennel. If the bed is clean and tidy, Aurelia and Miss Sasha will be happy, Elugia said calmly. What a good girl. If he hadn't met Aurelia before, Duque might have fallen in love with Elugia first. It was rare that Elugia came from a prestigious family, but she didn't put on airs at all. The inexplicable feeling in Duque's heart became more and more fervent. His arms crossed over the beautiful girl's shoulders and gently hugged Elugia from behind. Duque could feel the girl's body temperature rising rapidly in his arms. Duque opened his palm, revealing a strange ornament that looked like a ring. There was a cold and gentle electric light in the blue and white outer ring. This is... Right next to Elugia's ear, Duque's manly hot breath made the young lady of the Barov family go limp. This is called capacitor. I got it when I joined forces with Lothar to kill a powerful demon in Karazhan. Although it's not a high-grade item, I think it suits you very well. Really? Can I? Elugia seemed to be in slight disbelief. Even her outstretched hands were trembling slightly. After taking the ornament from Duque's palm, she stared at it for a long time. Then, she clenched it tightly with both hands and placed it closest to her heart. Duque didn't understand why Elugia was so excited. I know very well that my talent in magic isn't very good. Mother said that I can still hope to become a Morningstar mage in this lifetime, but it's hard to hope for anything higher. I may not be of much help in the field of magic in the future, so I only pray that I can do what I can. Hearing this, Duque fell silent. That's right. Even in the original history, Elugia was only a third-rate boss in Scholomance. Compared to Ronin and Jaina, her talent was like the difference between a firefly and a star. If Duke Barov hadn't sold food to help the refugees of Stormwind, he wouldn't have met, gotten to know Elugia. It had been almost 3 years since he transmigrated to Azeroth. His growth had long left many of his contemporaries far behind, but Duque was very clear that he wasn't someone who didn't care about old friendships. At this moment, Elugia suddenly spoke. Duque, if you think it's necessary to marry Miss Jaina, then just marry her. I'm a girl from a declining family. As long as I can have a small corner in your heart, I'll be satisfied. Duque was shocked. Chapter 647. He understood what was going on with Elugia's sadness. Elugia, who was born in the declining Barov family, immediately felt an instinctive sense of inferiority when she saw King Daelin of Kurtira's cell Jaina. He had thought that she was a gentle woman like Sasha, but Duque now realized that Elugia, who was born in a noble family, was much more fragile than the women of the Windrunner family. The women of the Windrunner family were always full of confidence no matter what. Don't be fooled by Sasha's gentle appearance, but she was decisive on the battlefield. If Duke really died or ran off to become a ghoul, Sasha would definitely be the type of person who would kill the ghoul Duke even if she had to hold back her tears. Then she would cry after the battle was over. Elugia obviously needed comfort. Duque hugged Elugia. I swear I will never marry Jaina. Elugia shuddered. She could hardly believe what she had just heard. She really did not understand why Duque would not want the young and beautiful Jaina, who was noble and could be of help in politics. But in the next moment, Elugia's imagination filled in the blanks. Thank you, Duque. Even if it's a lie, I'm willing to die. She turned around and buried her head in Duque's chest. Duque had no one to argue with. From the first day he crossed over to Azeroth, Duque remembered one truth. The princesses of Azeroth were all frauds. From the female wild boar named Princess in the Elven Forest, to the bear princess Ji-Song who was locked in a cage on Blood Island, to the earth princess Mizral who cheated the orcs, to the Maraudon princess in the Kalimdor continent whose measurements were 40, 80, and 40, and finally to the seemingly normal princess Jaina who sold her father, there were countless examples of frauds. In any case, Illusia absolutely could not understand Duque's fear of princesses as if they were ghosts. Fortunately, this didn't hinder her from experiencing Duque's determination. Duque could feel that the heart of the beauty in his arms was completely intoxicated. If he wanted to push her down, she probably would not refuse. But the beast Duque's conscience was playing tricks on him. Even though Duque wasn't a good person, and he had fantasized about making a killing in 3 years and never losing money, when it came down to it, girls under the age of 18 were beyond his hunting range. Didn't you see that before you transmigrated, it was written that women must not be younger than 20 years old to get married? All right, even if he transmigrated, he couldn't go against the country's policies. What if he had the chance to transmigrate back and write his story into a novel, but was banned? The author doesn't even have a place to cry. At this moment, Duque was an upright and reliable husband. At this moment, Duque was a man of integrity that everyone loved. Surprisingly, Duque really held back. He gently patted Illusia's back, comforting this sensitive girl. Leaning against Duque's chest, Illusia could clearly feel Duque's excitement and calmness again. She slowly raised her head and stared into Duque's deep black eyes. Her face was full of shyness. Duque shook his head gently, then blew into Illusia's ear. I promise you, when you turn 18, I will give you a real coming-of-age ceremony. This time, Illusia's pretty face was really red. She slowly closed her eyes. I want a promise from you, not just a verbal promise. How could Duque not understand? He directly pressed his lips against hers. A French kiss was enough to make this little girl infatuated. Duque teased, it's obviously a verbal promise. Illusia was so embarrassed that she ran away as fast as she could. Watching the beauty's back disappear from his sight, Duque turned his head and immediately face-bombed. Damn, do you have to be so elusive? What appeared in his field of vision were 2 pairs of long white legs unique to the High Elves. The Windrunner sisters were actually sitting on the beam of the room. When did you come in? Aurelia pretended to use her right index finger to point at her sharp chin. She looked like she was thinking, then turned her head to ask her third sister, yes. When did we come in? Sasha smiled like a flower, since little Illusia folded the quilt. Duque spurted out. What the hell, didn't that mean that they were here from the beginning? Duque complained, don't scare me. Why did you hide on the beam with your aura covered? We didn't hide. We were up there the whole time. Who told you to not look at us and jump on little Illusia the moment you entered the room? Aurelia was happy to see Duque embarrassed. Sister said that she wanted to see if you were infatuated with little Jaina. Sasha unceremoniously sold her sister out. Sister, don't think that you can sell me out just because you're my sister. Aurelia pretended to wave her little fist. Help, Duque, sister wants to deal with me. With that, Sasha screamed and jumped down. A gust of wind carried her slender body, and Sasha slowly floated down. Even with Duque's small body, he could easily princess carry Sasha and protect her. Looking at Sasha's pair of smooth calves swinging on the right side of his field of vision, Duque laughed. Don't be jealous. How can you guys miss out on a share of Nesario's good stuff? Duque waved his hand and took out a pair of boots that were not very bright from his dimensional bag. But Duque knew that Sasha would like them. As a ranger who needed to hide, bright colors were not practical. This pair of boots with a brown base was not as good as the green ones, but they were quite good. This is the boots of dreams. They're definitely much better than your superior ones. Sasha did not go down. She just picked up the boots in Duque's arms and put them on. This is great. I feel much lighter. Where's mine? Aurelia sat on the beam, her fingers crossed under her chin as she gazed at her lover. Duque threw a belt over and Aurelia caught it. This is best friend's belt. By the Sunwell, are we only best friends? I'm so sad. Aurelia went into acting mode, looking heartbroken. Duque's face darkened, but on second thought he also looked sad. I used to think of you as a big sister, as my best friend. Who knew that you would use your amazing beauty to seduce me? I was just a kid back then. You actually did such a vicious thing. Duque was so sincere. If one did not know the truth, they would really think that Aurelia was a female pervert. This time, it was Sasha's turn to laugh so hard that her stomach cramped. Aurelia looked embarrassed and angry. You little bastard. You took advantage of us, and you're still being sarcastic. You're great. I'll come down and kill you right now. The three of them immediately laughed together. Chapter 648. The whole night was filled with fairies fighting. Oh, fighting fairies. The sun rose, and the cold morning wind blew away the dark clouds. The rising sun reluctantly rose over the Alterac Mountains, and the warm sunlight shone into the room, waking Duque up. Aurelia was still sleeping soundly on the right, and there was a satisfied smile on her lips. No matter how many times Duque looked at her, he would always be fascinated by her alluring mix of nobility and wildness. Beside him, Sasha's long legs clamped onto Duque's thighs. Duque smiled, and moved his body a few times to free himself from the elastic thighs. Duque's getting up did not wake the two sisters up. After losing Duque as a human pillow, Sasha unconsciously moved to the right and hugged her sister. Aurelia seemed to be subconsciously used to her sister's actions. After a whimper, she hugged her sister with one hand. After Duque washed up, he went out and saw Elucia, Gavin Rad, and the captain of his knights, Cassa, waiting outside. Make an appointment for me with His Majesty Rin, Commander Lothar, and Archbishop Fail. 2 hours later, everyone was present. Do you really not need more people to clean up Karazhan? Lang asked with concern. Duque shook his head. No need. Karazhan is too narrow, and there are too many people. After all, it's my own territory. I know what I'm doing. Anduin's loud voice sounded. Duque is right. That damned place, it's useless to have too many people there. Besides, these elites can protect themselves anywhere in the world, let alone Karazhan. Looking around, Duque's Karazhan raid team was gorgeous. The warrior and main tank was Muradin Bronzebeard, who had run over after hearing the news. The vanguard was Gavin Rad and Tyrion Fordring, 2 first-generation paladins. The thief was Edwin Van Cleef. The long-range team was the 3 Windrunner sisters, plus the 2 mages, Duque and Ronan. The healer was Stormwind City's Holy Light Bishop Benedict. Duque took a look and laughed so hard that his stomach was about to burst. These were elites? Damn, he was clearly pulling a bunch of heroes and leader bosses to fight another bunch of bosses. Perhaps only Duque would be able to do something so deranged. If these guys were in their heyday in the future, Duque would definitely not need the help of the 4 great dragon kings. He would just lead them to torture Nisario to death. At this moment, they still had serious expressions on their faces. Muradin and the 2 paladins were repeatedly checking their hammers and shields. Edwin carefully smeared poison on his dagger. This was the first time Duque had summoned him after recovering all of Stormwind. For a while, Edwin almost thought that he'd lost Duque's attention and was a bit depressed. Now that Duque had summoned him to clean up Karazhan, of course Edwin was excited. The 3 Windrunner sisters all had different reactions. Sylvanas and Sasha couldn't wait to see the creatures and enemies of the other world, while Aurelia acted like a big sister, warning them not to be careless. Ronan was nervously revising the magic in his magic book. After seeing the War with Dragons, he was already considered experienced, but when he heard about monsters coming out of the spatial rift, he couldn't help but feel nervous again. On the contrary, Bishop Benedict was the calmest. He looked like he was ready to fool people with holy light at any time. Beside him, Elucia was a little worried. Duque, you gave me your accessory. What are you going to use? Duque patted his waist. This is Cruel's ruse. This is the same as Ronin's unruly will. They're both products of Nisario. I guarantee it with absolute confidence. Only then did Lucia feel relieved. Don't worry about this guy. No matter who dies, it won't be him. Aurelia had her hands on her hips. For some reason, whenever this topic was brought up, Aurelia would always think of Duque's fake death twice. If she hadn't personally confirmed that Duque was a living person, perhaps even she would have thought that Duque was some kind of undead. All right, be careful. Don't worry. I still have a team of Einherjar and a powerful mechanical construct in Karazhan. If not, I can call for help. Duque waved a necklace around his neck. The necklace itself was plain, but there were red scales where the necklace was. The teleportation door opened. The cleanup team entered in a single file. After becoming a Radiant Moon Archmage, Duque's teleportation door had become more stable. During the teleportation process, there was only a slight tremor. It was not even comparable to riding a horse. In his field of vision, everything stretched out, and the surrounding scenery became strange and blurry. The Windrunner sisters, who had experienced many teleportations, did not feel anything, but Muradin and Edwin, who were teleporting for the first time, vomited almost as soon as they stepped out of the teleportation door. As soon as he stepped out of the door, Duque saw Khadgar in his soul form. "Master, you're finally back. We can't hold on any longer." "I'm back." Duque comforted Khadgar. Although Khadgar's behavior was a little funny, Duque also felt that he had let Khadgar down. During the entire World War II at the Dark Portal, Duque had only returned to Karazhan a few times. If not for Khadgar leading the Einherjar to maintain control of the Wizard Tower, Duque would not have been able to trick the group of wizards into coming here. Duque did a quick check. During Lothar's raid on Karazhan, the bosses they had defeated were Atumen the Hunter, Moros the Butler, Evil Hoof, Chess, and Prince. Mediva's late father, Alan, had already disappeared after blocking the curse for Duque. The curator was controlled by Duque. In reality, there were not many boss-level monsters left. If it was the Earth Wizard Duque from before, it would definitely be difficult. But now, Duque was really used to train his troops. A demon that Alexstrasza had specifically reminded him of was definitely not some random person. But who could it be? Duque repeatedly compared the demons in his memory with names, his mind in a mess. In reality, the demons in Azeroth were not called demons. To be precise, they were a race called Eridar. This highly intelligent humanoid race did not come from the world of Azeroth or Draenor. They came from an ancient and faraway world called Argus. When Sardras was fighting against the Dreadlord, he was affected by the mind manipulation spell. After that, he began to doubt his own divine life. He persuaded Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, one of the three heads of Eridar, and Eridar split up. The more righteous prophet Willan left with his people and ran to Draenor to seek refuge. Those Eridar people later became the Draenei. As for the remaining Eridar people who followed the two Burning Legion commanders, they began to be called Man'ari, which were the demons in the eyes of the people of Azeroth. Chapter 649. By the way, Duque, your army isn't weak at all. Why can't you take down the second level? Aurelia asked head butler Khadgar, whom Duque had arranged to stay in Karazhan, as they passed through the ballroom on the second level of Karazhan. This was not Aurelia's fault. The other members of the team had the same question as well. There were more than 100 people in the team, and it felt like any one of them could easily take down a team of royal knights. There was also Khadgar, the ghost butler with unknown strength. There was also a mysterious golem called Curator. Strong no matter how one looked at it. Khadgar's face suddenly showed a sad expression. Those demons. Those damn demons. We can't fight them at all. Curator is too big, we can't go in. This has nothing to do with combat power, it's just, sob. They bullied me. After saying this, Khadgar actually ran away in tears. The accompanying Einherjars also had strange expressions on their faces. They all stayed on the second level and refused to move. Master, we can't fight against those demons, but with Lady Windrunner and the other ladies here, there shouldn't be a problem, right? What's the problem? Sasha asked curiously. It had been a long time since he had returned, and Duque's memories were a little fuzzy. But when he went up the stairs and heard a flirtatious and seductive female voice coming from the corridor ahead, the dust-covered memories reopened. Damn it. No wonder that brat Khadgar lost so badly. Why isn't that Khadgar coming? Things just got interesting the last time. Sigh. It's always over so quickly. A ghost mage. Well, the process itself is quite interesting. Looking at the flirtatious female attendants in revealing clothes not far from the guest hall, Duque's side thought of Khadgar's escape, and a few men laughed shamelessly. Duque was speechless. He face-bombed, not wanting to say anything. Wow. Gavin Rad whistled. I like this style. It's a pity. That's right. What a pity. The female attendants at the front were extremely attractive. They had round faces, perky buttocks, and long white legs. They had everything that should be there. They were definitely in line with the visual sense of a normal man. Coquettish sluts could attract men's attention no matter where they were. If they weren't succubi. At this moment, the three Windrunner sisters surrounded Duque. Aurelia rolled her eyes. Fortunately, I've been by your side for the past year. Otherwise, I would have doubted your taste. This time, Sasha did not compromise. Humph. If you bring such a fellow into the house, my sister and I will leave at once. Duque surrendered. Please, this is Karazhan, the connecting point of countless voids. It wasn't strange for any kind of person to come out. Leave this kind of woman for Gavin Rad. Gavin Rad immediately protested. Hey, I'm a first-generation holy knight. As someone with an incomparably noble character and sentiments, only a woman who also emits holy light can move my heart. Oh, she must have a good figure. I don't want a beautiful woman who doesn't conform to the golden ratio. Hee. Duque shamelessly smiled mysteriously. Aurelia raised the hunting bow in her hand and seemed to be pointing at something. Then, Duque, you don't mind if I get rid of these pretty vases, right? Why would I have any objections? Succubi were extremely lethal to every male. Men would always find it hard to resist charm-type skills. It seemed like Khadgar's moral integrity was lost here and could not be retrieved. But Duke didn't understand. Why didn't Khadgar's soul scatter and scatter? What the three Windstalker sisters practiced was the lying corpse archery. After a wave of shio sounds, Gavin Rad watched with regret as those balls, butts, and legs all turned into raging flames, disappearing from his field of view. Everyone continued down the corridor. After clearing out the phantom guardians in 2 rooms, a dignified female voice suddenly sounded. Intruders! Your actions are unforgivable. Impure thoughts will lead to blasphemous actions. You must be purified. Come, let me, as the saintess of chastity, be your opponent. Muradin and Edwin, who were leading the charge, were stunned. The next second, the bastard dwarf pointed to the front shamelessly. There, Gavin Rad, your favorite woman who emits holy light, is here. Do you want to talk to her? Just one look, and Gavin Rad felt unwell. Damn, what the hell was that? It was true that she emitted holy light. The golden ratio was true. It was also true that she was a woman? And the saintess of chastity. But why the hell were you a 10-meter-tall stone giant? What happened to the fun and flirting? Gavin Rad, who had always thought of himself as elegant, was petrified. A gust of wind blew, and everyone seemed to see Gavin Rad's soul dissipate with the wind. The female giant was very tall, and she was in a huge hall at the end of the corridor. The thick pillars in the middle of the hall seemed to have some mysterious power that prevented the female giant from walking out. What do we do? Everyone looked at Duque. Duque shrugged. There's nothing we can do. The demon army is about to attack, and I have to eliminate all the unstable factors in Karazhan. Although it's a bit unfair to Gavin Rad's girlfriend, I can only ask her to destroy it. Hey, who's my girlfriend? Don't think you can say whatever you want just because you're my boss. You have a princess as your fiancée, And I'm still single. Gavinrad's threatening roar was ignored. Duque commanded, everyone, spread out. Since the opponent is holy, she might have AoE skills like devotion that can penetrate the ground with holy light. The Saintess of Chastity. This was a dummy boss that could be defeated with one's eyes closed. Duque didn't feel anything for this female boss who was surrounded by a group of succubi for some reason. With a command, everyone rushed forward, sharpening their weapons to defeat the boss. Another accident happened. Are you an emissary of the holy light? Without any reaction to Muradin's shield strike on her calf, the holy maiden of chastity knelt on one knee and stared at Gavinrad with shining golden eyes. Huh! Gavinrad's face was full of confusion. Tyrion Fordring raised his long two-handed hammer. Thus, he and I are both first-generation paladins who have inherited the holy light, the Azeroth. The holy maiden of chastity nodded. I'm so happy to meet companions who believe in the same holy power in different worlds. It seems that you are not my enemy. My name is Jenna Christian. What's your name? Gavinrad's mind was in a mess, and he answered almost subconsciously, Gavinrad Bad Luck. Looking at the harmonious exchange of questions and answers, Muradin turned his head. Gavinrad, how dare you say she's not your girlfriend? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.